I'd like to reopen the Washington Unified School District Regular Board of Education meeting for June 9th, 2016. If I can ask, I think I saw Mr. Levine. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcement of actions taken in closed session. Item E1, Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators. Information was received. Item E2, Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal. Information was received. In Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Superintendent Evaluation. Information was given. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Communications and celebrations. Yes, we're celebrated out from the last few meetings. Association reports, WTA. No reports tonight, thank you. CSEA.
Good evening, everybody. Ms. Cruz, Superintendent Linda Luna. Working with the HR department on restructuring 3 departments, grounds, physical analyst benefit, benefit payroll techs. And we are working with the district on addressing some workplace harassment issues that we would like to keep working towards addressing those. And we would like to start working with the HR department on filling vacant positions before the start of the new school year. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Public comments, I have Xavier, is it Good Faith?
Hello, good evening, guys. I'm here to talk as a parent, not on behalf of any organization. I just wanted to talk about my experience with the district, positive experience. When my son, Bruce, started with Washington Unified in 2009, he was unable to express himself. He wasn't even talking. He would go into fits. We really needed help, and we were at our wits' end. We were going through multiple different agencies, and we finally stopped at the district and asked for their help. And I could name a laundry list of specialists and teachers: Cynthia Taylor, Kim Delaney, Tiffany Keller, Rita Torres. There's so many, and I remember their names because they really helped my son. Now he's in 4th grade now. He's in a full-on general ed class, whereas before he was in a special ed only. He continues to work with his social skills, how to behave around others, how to behave appropriately in different situations, how to accept consequences, how to accept mistakes, things that will help him later in life. Whereas before we came to the district, we were given a kind of a doom sentence, if you will, that this will govern the rest of his life up to adulthood, and there's no hope for him. And these teachers, these specialists, they gave us hope, and they continue to do so on and off the clock. I mean, I used to be a teacher. Some of you guys used to be teachers. You guys know all the time and effort, put into on and off the clock. And some of the examples I can think of, the teacher my son Bruce just graduated from, she does a lot of training sessions. She does a lot of workshops. She goes to a lot of meetings, and she doesn't even have to stay the whole time. I mean, it's after the whole 8 to the end of the school day period, but she stays And, she has commitments, at her own home, family, and things like that, but she stays, and I see her with my son and also with his peers. And it's been like that year after year since 2009. And I look forward to a lot of the other positive changes and tools and resources that our great teachers here and specialists will continue to instill in my son so he can go forward and grow up and be a productive member in society and not be defined by his disability. He was diagnosed with mild autism, but every day, especially in the classroom at Riverbank Elementary, we've been to other schools too, Southport Elementary, Westmore Oaks, Alice Norman. Just very patient, very passionate about the children. They don't, they're not in it for the money or they're not in some hidden agenda. They're in it for the children. And I just wanted to let you guys know. Thank you.
Thank you. Board and superintendent comments. Board Member Pizzotti.
Well, I just wanted to say this was since I'm the newest one on the board, this was my first time handing out diplomas at Raley Field. It was quite an event, and I just want to say how proud I am of all the students that were, all 487 of them, I believe, that walked. I think it's such an amazing accomplishment, and so many of them with honors, and that is a testament to the staff and the teachers, the administration that we have at all our schools that help them get to this point in their lives. I think it was quite amazing to see how these kids have grown over the years. And also, I'd like to say thank you to the principals of both Yolo High and River City High, because they really do a fine job in making sure that these kids stay on a good, straight, narrow path, especially Principal Ramos. He was outstanding. And the kids at Yolo High that graduated as well were outstanding. And some of the speeches that we heard from the kids and the graduates were very impressive and heartfelt. And they really kind of pulled on my heartstrings a little bit. So that's it.
Thank you. Board Member Alcala.
Thank you. I just have a brief statement. I want to correct the record from the last board meeting. I've already spoken to our board, legal counsel, and the superintendent about this correction. At the last meeting, when we were talking about single-member districts, 2 members of our board, Sarah Kirby-Gonzalez and Katie Villegas, stated that they had relied upon a legal opinion that they had received stating that the Washington School District was operating legally in compliance with the California Voting Rights Act. In fact, there is no such legal opinion. Our legal counsel never provided an opinion stating that we were in compliance with the California Voting Rights Act. Thank you.
Is that it? That's it. Board Member Kirby Gonzalez.
Thank you. I'm surprised that Board Trustee Pizzotti did not talk about archery that we attended. And I was pretty impressed with myself. I was able to meet the target, but we did get to go out to River City on a very hot day and join the archery club students. And it was just a really special event. And as we're walking out there and we're talking to the teacher who gives her own time to do this, she says, well, I said, where did you get all of this equipment? How did you get it? Did you apply for a grant? And she said, well, I asked all my family to donate money, and I asked all my friends to donate money, and I was able to get enough equipment to be able to run this club. And man, talk about commitment, right? In terms of having people just put their heart into what they do for the kids. And we walked out there, and it's very hot out there, by the way. I don't know if we can help with some benches or shade, but I would certainly be a proponent to help with that. But as we're out there, the kids were just lighting up. They were fabulous instructors and helpers, and it was just a really delight. And I really appreciate all that folks do. I know that the teachers are giving their own time. I know that clubs like that do not run without people who are passionate and who are not willing to give of their own time. I know that it impacts their families and their personal lives to do things like that. And it was really nice to be invited in and to really see how much work goes into that, because a lot clearly does. And don't want to lose a club like that. It was fabulous. And I know there's many, many others just like that one. We had our 2x2 meeting this week, and we did talk about the memorial plaque that I know that you had brought up, Board Member Alcala, about for Cheryl Costarina, and they do not currently have a policy in place. It sounds like this is very doable to do a bench, like at the Riverwalk, where they'll have a bench, and then in front, in the cement, the plaque can go there. And so I'm not sure if they're going to reach out to the family. If you want to reach out to the family, we can talk about that, about next steps, but that sounds very doable at the Bright Park. There's some existing benches that are already there. Maybe a plaque could be added to that piece. Phase 2 is here tonight for us, and we also talked about that as well. So it sounds very doable to do that piece, which I think would be a beautiful tribute and place for people to be. We also talked about the Summer Steps internship program that the city has offered, and they had 756 applicants, and they hired 21. So these are students who were hired. 15 of them are current or former River City students. Nice. And when I asked about the quality of applications, they said that they were very, very high. It was very hard for them to make choices. Some departments who weren't sure they even needed anyone and went through the interview process, one department picked 3. And so clearly, though, we can see if 21 are hired and 756 are applying, that there might be some more need there. They are doing some work through their Future Ready program to work on getting businesses and others to have apprenticeship programs. I know we have technology interns that have happened before, so we talked about how we could maybe talk together, streamline some of that with what we're doing, with what they're doing. They are earning through this LRNG platform, earning these badges by participating in this program. This would be just one way of many to earn these digital badges through a grant that they're working on. So we can look at working together. I thought technology was a nice fit, and I know our technology director is here because of all the work that they're already doing. And then they also brought up with this, the proposed city sales tax that it looks like will be going on to the November ballot. Within that would be preschool, but there was not a drawn-out idea of what that would look like or how much money, would be allotted to things exactly. So more to come, I guess, on that. A lot more questions to ask, but they are looking at putting a 1/4 cent sales tax onto the ballot as the city. And I believe that is everything that was brought to us at the 2x2 meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And I, too, all of the board was able to attend both graduations, the Yolo High and the River City. And I'd like to echo some of the comments Board Member Pizzotti gave, and definitely thank all the staff for putting together that graduation, and other staff that put the stage together and spent hours out there putting it together. The photographers were great. It was just a good time. The teachers announcing the names. So many of them were energetic and really got the crowd going. So it was just a good time had by everybody. The YOLO graduation, pretty emotional. We had an adult ed class, and a young lady, I say young because I think she was about our age.
She's about my age, yeah.
She graduated, and she gave a wonderful speech that moved all of us, and it was just an exciting time. It's always an exciting time of the year for all of us. I do want to touch on the intern program the city had too. My son he applied for 2 departments. He interviewed for 2 departments. He on each panel there was a panel of 3 individuals, And this is the very first job he applied for. He's never applied for a paper route or Carl's Jr.'s or anything. So to go to the city for his first interview was kind of exciting. And one of the panels actually, two of the members gave him their business cards. They were really impressed with him. Unfortunately, he didn't get either job, but it was a great experience for him. He was very excited, and, he had his resume. And so even, if you don't get the job, it was still a very good experience for him. Also, while the summer is going on and some of our staff are enjoying a break, I just want to let the public know there are a lot of staff still working. There's a lot of summer sports going on. My son decided to pick up another sport. Yay for me, more transportation, but he's doing the cross country at River City in the morning and basketball in the evening. So there's still a lot of staff out there, and I just want to thank them for spending their summers also with our kids. I also talked to Stan because every year at graduation, the board always has the same questions, and so I just wanted to let the board know on some of the numbers of our graduations this year. So there were 487 that graduated from River City. 141 of them went to four-year college. 276 of them went to a two-year college. 20 of them went to the military, and 41 of them are working or seeking work, and 8 of them at a trade school, and 1 on the TAL program. So those were pretty impressive numbers. That, I was good to hear that, hopefully those that go to the four-year college make it through the four-year college. So that was good. But along with that we always ask is actually the breakdown of the ethnicity of those graduates. And so with that, and these came from Stan, so I'm pretty sure they're true and accurate, sorry. African Americans was 7%. The Native Americans, Native Alaskans were 1%. The Asian were 16%. The Hispanic or Latino were 38%. And the white were 39%. So this is numbers that we have asked for over the years, and I would gladly share them on or have Stan send everybody the email. But it was good to see that. And I haven't seen, I think shortly it comes out in the newspapers, all of our graduates and their names. I'm not sure if it was the newsletter. But over the years, it never says what college they went to. So we did make that request to Stan. I don't know if it'll happen because, things went fast. But these are good numbers, and it's good to see that we're having such great success. So I just want to thank everybody for that. And Superintendent Luna?
Thank you, President Cruz, Board of Trustees, staff, and guests. This evening, I'd like to just give an update on where we are going this summer. But first, we'll start with celebrations, as we always do. We were able to get to all promotion ceremonies at our K-8 schools. I want to thank my cabinet for taking on some of those visitations with me. So I'm only going to share the ones that I went to. Westfield Elementary, the 5th grade promotion, as you can see, was very well attended by their parents, and it was a full house in the cafeteria. What I really love about all of our promotion ceremonies is when the student speaks. So each class gets to choose a student representative to speak. And of course, over at Westfield, it's very touching. And this is a different kind of promotion because most of the schools do not have a 5th grade promotion. They only have an 8th grade. And so our Westfield kids will be then going into Elkhorn for 6th grade. Speaking of Elkhorn, I also attended that right after the Westfield promotion, and theirs was outside, and that was the 103-degree day, and so I was very grateful that it started at 9 in the morning. And you can see there, there's an 8th grade speaker who was really incredible. She sounded just like a valedictorian, and she talked about her journey from K-8 and how she came out ahead in 8th grade because of all the support services over at Elkhorn Elementary and how the teachers really rally for the students. And there she is. The other thing I want to shout out about is because we have a lot of parents that come onto our campuses. And as I walked through the campus, particularly of Westfield and Elkhorn, wow, our schools look nice. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the custodians and to the groundskeepers because they made our campuses look very beautiful, knowing that we were going to get visitors for graduations and promotions. But those particular schools, really, really beautiful. I also went to Riverbanks, and I wanted to go to Riverbanks because it was going to be Principal Woodcock's last promotion. And as you can see, this is only one side, because I'm on the other side of the gym, and it was packed where I was sitting as well. It was a full house. And what I really love about Riverbanks is not only to hear Principal Woodcock's final address to his final 8th grade class, but also, as you can see, we had a student come back and join her class after having a very challenging year physically and emotionally, and there she is, she made it back. And that's what it's all about. We had that parent talk about earlier about teachers being that hope. Our school district is a hope in this city. We're the hope for future because we groom and educate our future leaders. And there, that picture right there is just a display of that. And what I loved about Principal Woodcock's address was he told the 8th grade class that they both are embarking on a different journey. The 8th grade students to high school and his into retirement. It was a really nice ceremony. I also attended the West Sacramento Early College Preparatory Charter graduation, and there are more kids. This one picture just happened to capture a group of students, but there were more students that graduated. It was held at the California Auto Museum, right across the bridge there. Very beautiful. And I think probably the highlight of the ceremony was the keynote speaker that they had, which was their technology specialist, and he really honored every single graduate that evening by just shouting out their beautiful qualities of each student. It was a beautiful graduation. Also attended Yolo High School graduation, and you see there in that picture they had their keynote speaker, Kevin Bracey, who's always good, not just for the kids, but he was also our guest speaker for the North State Conference for AXA, and really gave a lot of encouragement to all the administrators of the Northern California region, and there he is addressing our Yolo High School kids one last time. And want to thank the board for making all the efforts to be at all of the graduations and all throughout the year, all of the special events at the schools. We know that you're busy people. We know that you also work full-time, and yet you have really made a presence, and I just want to thank you for that as a superintendent. And finally, we have our large comprehensive high school, and that picture right there is all 487 students who attended. I think it was actually 480 kids who walked across the stage that day, and we wish our River City graduates the very, very best. So what's happening this summer? What's happening this summer is over at Westmore Oaks and at River City High School, we have our summer programs. So extended school year is being offered to students who qualify for that particular program. Our English learner, it's kind of like a catch-up or additional time kind of instruction is from all ages. So the K-8 age is over at Westmore Oaks of all the different schools, and then River City High School is for River City students. We have a bridge program that is for 8th grade students going into River City, and it's called a bridge class, and it's to prepare them for high school math. So we're really focused on math because the board has adopted a brand new curriculum of mathematics to be implemented next school year. And so this is like a preparation for it. It's always good to give kids that one-up before they go into their school year. We're also offering some credit recovery in mathematics at the high school. So you can see it's very strategic. It's just not the gamut. It's strategic for a reason, and it's because our focus this year has been preparing for math and also ensuring that our English learners do accelerate accordingly. We also are doing an additional summer program at Elkhorn, and it's going to be in August, and they're kind of two boot camps per se. The first boot camp is to kick off our dual immersion program, and because these are kindergarten students, they're 5 years old, we thought it would be great to bring the students and the parents in 2 weeks before the first day of school so that the kids get grounded, the parents truly understand about the dual immersion program of how their kids will be receiving instruction, particularly in the Spanish language. And so we thought boot camp is good. And then we're also going to do a boot camp at Elkhorn Village for math. And the reason for that is strategic. 5th grade Westfield students go into Elkhorn. So we wanted to give them an advance of, here's your new campus, let's focus a little bit on math, let's get up to speed, and then they can start their middle school year at Elkhorn. So we're using our allocations and our resources very strategic to ensure we know that we're hitting the right areas there. Today was really a great morning. I started my morning at Westmore Oaks with their leadership team. The leadership team is work today and is working tomorrow on professional learning communities and leadership. And I have to give a shout out to Westmore Oaks. They are doing a fabulous job. Just getting ready for another school year, coming together as a learning community and working together beautifully. So shout out to Westmore Oaks. I also want to talk a little bit about the internship programs. Thank you so much for bringing that up, that so many kids applied for that job. And actually, I think in my notes I had, 776 applications. But the good news about all those hundreds of applications is that 86 of them came from our current River City High School students. And yes, there were 21 interns that were hired, and 15 of them are from River City. So I look back on my internship, which was $1.85 an hour at Burger King. I got a work permit finally in high school, but it was $1.85 an hour. These kids have an incredible opportunity to work in city government as an intern, to be paid this summer, and to also add to their digital badge, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, an experience that maybe not other kids will have. So one of the trustees had mentioned a little bit about the LRNG program, and this is driven in our city with River City High School. And West Sacramento is one of a handful of cities in the United States as part of the LRNG program. This particular program is starting with very large cities such as San Diego, San Jose, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I mean, we're talking huge cities. But here, West Sacramento, our River City High School kids are going to be very well advantaged over others in the nation as they graduate from River City and go into the workforce. There's a couple things I want us to know about it. There's a reason why this LRNG nonprofit organization is moving forward, and it's really about a shift. It's taking advantage of the generation of our students that are very technology-based. And so this particular program is shifting so that it's not about inside the classroom, it's about what are the kids doing at home, on the weekends, during the summer, to connect to learning through digital resources. And so through the partnership of school districts, businesses, employment agencies, our kids are going to increase a network to be ready for the workforce. And this is why this is happening. One, there's a growing disengagement of a generation of students in technology. So when I think about my kids that are 28 and 24, it's a complete digital divide between myself and my kids. They have no idea what I went through in terms of how technology rolled in, whereas they've only known technology. And so in our society, if our kids are not connecting to technology at home, during the summer, on the weekends, on their own time, then they're disconnected. So the second part of it is widening enrichment gap. What we know is about 47% of families actually pay for additional enrichment services. But what about families who don't have that money? So this particular program connects kids. You don't have to have money to be able to connect to these resources. The third is to prepare for a better workforce. And that's what our career technical education movement is all about in Washington Unified. And fourthly, when we talk about the loss of human potential, two superintendent updates ago, I was going to talk about Day of the Teacher. It was Day of the Teacher time at the beginning of May. And in my update, I had a picture of 2 teachers, because they're the ones that saw my potential for me to be able to stand here today as a superintendent. And that's what, not just in the classroom with our teachers, but also at home and a network of other resources. And that's what this LRNG is going to do for our kids. So it's about digital badges, so the kids will be able to grow digital badges. And in these digital badges, they'll be able to show what they have accomplished in their skills, their experiences, such as their internships, such as their seal of biliteracy, and other programs if they've gone through dual immersion, AP courses, all of those that they have accomplished will be on their digital badge. It will prepare them as they apply for colleges. They will have badges versus just an essay to turn in. The workforce, those employers who engage with LRNG and who accept these digital badges, our kids will have an advantage over those who don't even know what digital badges are. And lastly, it will create a network, a positive network, versus kids entering into inappropriate networks or other networks we don't want them to.
Superintendent Luna, so the city has a internship program, a part of
Yes.
this. Do we, the district, have or participate in something like that for maybe our district office, or?
That's a great question, because I was thinking that in our 2x2 meeting, the 21 positions that they hired for our city here with City Hall
Right.
and city government, what a great way, because look at how many people are going to become teachers.
Right.
Look at how many people will, I don't know, who knows what they will become, but at least they can have experiences, and I would love that, to have internships in our district and provide opportunities for our students. I think that would be absolutely wonderful. So I think we'll look into that and bring information to the board on that
Thank you.
one. Yes. So just a few summer initiatives. All of our schools are going to get a little bit of construction, thanks to our citizens for our Measure V bond. We're going through systems refreshment, in other words, data turnover, system turnover to prepare for another school year. We're looking at preparations for opening a school. I'll be writing a letter to every class for the River City High School and Yolo High School. As a freshman, what my message will be to you as a freshman coming into high school, what my message will be to sophomores, to juniors, and to seniors. So they'll be getting that this summer. We're also preparing lots of parent packets, so we're very busy this summer. The other most important thing about our summer work is to take time to reflect. We're going through these questions right now. What did we learn in this past school year? How will we improve next year? And most importantly, let's walk in the shoes of our students so that we can better understand and change how to better meet their needs next year. So that's our work this summer, and we are around. The public is able to access the district office between 8 and 4, and we have staff on board throughout the summer. So I want to thank you so much for all the work for this school year. Any other questions?
Oh,
or-
I just had a few questions. Great question that you asked. And do we have any internships where we have partnerships with hospitals or some of the technology firms we have, like Micromidas down the road? And are these paid or unpaid internships?
As far as I know, the only internships that I'm aware of are with the city itself. I think what we need to do is make those connections, particularly through our CTE programs and pathways, to then make sure kids who are committed into these particular pathways do end up in internships with those particular businesses and employment opportunities. If we had a health academy, we definitely would want the partnership of Sutter Health, of Kaiser, and all of the other medical professions that are in our area. We need to increase that. I would love to see that. This year, as far as I know, it's only city internships.
Okay. I just want to say I'm very, very happy to hear that we're placing an emphasis on technology, because I think I read that, what is it, about 300,000 high-tech jobs go unfilled every year in California.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Great, thank you so much.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Ask her. You sure? No. We're headed to a public hearing N1, the Washington Unified School District LCAP Draft 2016-17 and Annual Update 2015-16. Gwen Dillinger, Director of Planning, Accountability, and Compensatory Education.
Good evening, President Cruz, Board of Trustees, Cabinet, Superintendent Luna. Thank you for getting my title correct. Sometimes it takes me a while to get that out. I'm here tonight to give you a brief overview of this large document, the Local Control Accountability Plan. This is our first read, and we're hoping to seek approval at the next board meeting. As you know, the Local Control Accountability Plan, do I have a clicker? Oh. Was signed into law in January of 2013. We're moving into our third year of LCAP, which stems from the local control funding formula that provided more flexibility to school districts versus the way the state used to allocate more restricted funds. It provides for accountability, additional resources for high-needs students, and the best part is that it requires community and parent input, stakeholder input to create a plan that best serves our students. Our plan is required to address the 8 state priorities. Our 5 Washington Unified School District LCAP goals have remained the same since the inception. The first goal is 21st century skills, which means that our students need to be prepared for a 21st century world with their reading, their math, collaboration skills, world languages, and the like. The second goal, goal 2, is educational outcomes, which really speaks to career pathways, to CTE programs, to VAPA, to languages, just multiple opportunities for kids to excel. Our goal 3 is high quality teaching and learning, which speaks to professional development for teachers, our school environments that promote accelerated learning. Our 4th goal is school climate, and as you all know, school climate addresses a safe environment, a place where kids want to come and feel free to learn and express themselves. And finally, our 5th goal is community engagement. Those 5 goals have remained consistent. Through all of our stakeholder meetings, it's been agreed to keep a focus on those goals rather than abandoning them and starting something new. So what LCFF did was allow increased funding based on a supplemental grant or a concentration grant. Our district does qualify for supplemental and concentration grant funding, which provides equity. So you can see here a funding goal. This is one of my most favorite graphics because it so clearly shows what we need to do with this funding. So that's a little background. I'm going to dive into the actual goals now. Before I do that, I want to acknowledge that we had many venues for stakeholder input. This year, our Local Control Accountability Plan PAC, LCAP PAC, Parent Advisory Committee, it was a much better committee this year because we had the same participants come each time, and they built capacity. So rather than having various town hall meetings where different folks would come, this group really stuck together. They stuck with the process. They dug in, and it created more of a quality environment. We had teachers, we had principals, we had parents, we had community members in this group, and they met 5 times. We also had working sessions. We had 3 working sessions where we took Parent Advisory Committee recommendations, DLAC recommendations, and we actually put them into language that made sense. We looked at the charts and all the input, and we did that with leadership teams. Superintendent Luna led a couple of those sessions, and we really got to work. And then we had DLAC, we had a staff survey, we had community surveys. The strategic planning committee really fit right into that. School site councils and student surveys. So that was our stakeholder input. So I'm not going to go through every action that's in this plan, but I will tell you that we streamlined the LCAP this year to really focus under Superintendent Luna's direction to be strategic and not to do a million different things and put more on the plate, but to really focus on our 5 goals. And our stakeholders were very clear about that as well. So I just highlighted a few of the actions in Goal 1. First and foremost is that we're implementing our new math curriculum. And you can see from our presentations today that everything's focused on that. We're also looking at refining systems for analyzing student performance through some data dashboards, items like that, where we can really see what are we doing and is it working. Continuing with our technology plan toward one-to-one devices, and implementing Get Focused, Stay Focused for entering 9th graders. And that's a program that will prepare them for college and career. As you can see, with each action, there should be some accountability. So through our plan, we utilize the 22 required accountability metrics and then some local metrics to make sure that what we're doing is actually having an effect. And just a few of the metrics, we want to make sure that 90% of our 9th grade students will actually complete Get Focused, Stay Focused. We have to include smarter, balanced, summative assessment scores. That there's an increase of students using devices. So those are things that we reflect on as the year goes by to see are actions actually working. Goal 2, educational opportunities. We're expanding the visual and performing arts program by hiring 3 additional VAPA teachers so that each site will have VAPA instruction. We are continuing to offer AVID to all eligible and self-selecting students district-wide, expanding the Seal It by Literacy, and you can see the accountability measures. I'm not going to read them all to you, but really looking at CTE sequence, baseline, and completion rates, which is something new this year. Goal 3, high quality teaching and learning. When we looked at last year's plan, we realized that professional learning was in multiple spots, and we thought it made more sense to put all of professional learning under Goal 3. So that's, as you read it, I think the plan is more clear, and you'll see professional learning as one action, one focused strategic action. That was a big change this year. We're continuing with recruit, retain, and sustain effective teachers and the new teacher induction program. And we're looking at it. We currently have voluntary participation in professional development, and we're hoping to keep increasing that. Goal 4, school climate. The only really new thing we have in this goal is implementing the tipping point attendance program, which is under Director Jerry Smith, to be proactive in catching kids before they go to a SARB, before they become that truant. Otherwise, our stakeholders are extremely happy with our social workers, with our health aides, with our homeschool liaisons, with Kevin Bracey. So continuing those programs, digging deeper, is where we're at. And then some of the accountability measures under this goal are school attendance, dropout rates, graduation rates, basically the requirements that are set out in the law. Finally, Goal 5, parent and community engagement. Again, we're continuing existing programs, really utilizing our public information officer to start highlighting the positive things that are happening in Washington Unified, increasing the communication, increasing avenues of communication, multiple ways of communicating with stakeholders, and getting feedback. And we're looking at establishing, this came from our parent group, a more friendly, user-friendly process for parent volunteers and what that's going to look like. I know Human Resources is having some discussion about that as well. And some of the accountability metrics are, how many parents are actually enrolling in our Parent Institute for Quality Education PK program, how many parents are coming to our events. And what we do know is that our school sites offer many, many fun events, and just making that consistent across the district that parents are showing up. So those are the highlights. I encourage you to please look through the document, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions or comments?
I just had a question. You said you had a lot of the same folks coming for the LCAP meetings. Those parents, did we get a parent from each of our elementary schools?
We absolutely did. So we tasked principals with finding some parents that were leaders on their campuses, and the principal brought a team of parents, a teacher, usually a homeschool liaison was involved, which was wonderful because not only are they keyed into the community, but oftentimes they're parents as well. And so, yeah, there were teams from each school.
Fantastic. I guess I have one more question. We have so many Latino students in the district. What percentage would you say of Latinos are on that task force?
I can't even give you a percentage, but I can say that we had a lot of Spanish translation. So probably at every table, there was someone who was speaking Spanish. We also had a Russian translation available as well. So I would say it was probably, I don't even want to say a percentage, but highly represented.
Good.
Absolutely. Our homeschool liaisons were invited into that group as well. So they brought their communities in.
Comments, questions?
Yes, clearly the technology divide, these devices, I can't even figure out how to open the attachment. I've been trying for like 15 minutes. So I read it all at home, but I can't figure out, I can only get to page like 3 on this one. So, so I'll be emailing you with a couple questions as well, since mine's not coming up. But my question would be data dashboards. Can you explain that a little bit more? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So the state is requiring these 22 metrics, and we're implementing programs, and we need to be able to tell if these programs are actually effective. So what a data dashboard does, as far as my understanding, and I know that we're going to be learning more about this in the upcoming weeks, is that it can take a software program. For instance, we use Imagine Learning for our English learners, and that Imagine Learning generates reports. And we might use Lexia, another program that generates reports. So rather than having all these programs that run reports, they'll still exist, but this data dashboard, they can feed into that, and you can look, okay, Sarah is our student, she's in 6th grade. You can click on Sarah and see what intervention she's receiving, how many suspensions she's had. Is Imagine Learning working for her? Is it not? You could pull up demographics. How are our girls doing in science? Things like that. So it's a process right now where I believe exploring a data dashboard. There hasn't been one specifically chosen, but many districts are using these with good results.
Okay, so we'll hear more about that then before it comes to the board. Okay, good. Because that would be my only, that would be a concerning piece is when it says refined systems analyzing student performance, and that the accountability would be like SBAC tests. And that, those are, to me, not multiple measures. Yeah, and so I want to certainly make sure that as we have these discussions, we have multiple measures, because I would very much not be in favor of having our accountability metric be narrowed to something like the SBAC and these data performances, because we all know that while it's messier, the best way to know how a student's doing is to sit down and, one-on-one with a teacher in a conference and having some time together. I mean, that needs to be a piece of these. So thank you, and I'm glad to know that we'll be hearing more about that. And then my only other piece is you had said that we wanted to be proactive before SARB in terms of our attendance rates. I know in the past that we've worked with an attendance group who has done a really good job, but they've sent a lot of letters home to people. And is that an area that you think we need to do better? Are we still working with that group? Would we work with a different group?
Great question. I believe the program that you're talking about is attention to attendance that we are still working with.
Okay.
This is an additional layer on that.
Okay.
And
So-
Jerry Smith will know more about, this is
Okay.
an additional layer on to attention to attendance.
Okay.
But our attendance numbers are looking great.
Yeah.
We're over 96%.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay, thank you.
And just one quick question. The evaluations come out a lot quicker for teachers. So the intervention, let's say someone's lagging behind, you're able to, assess that much quicker with this program, is that correct?
So each program has its own evaluation system. So if you're logging into many of them like Lexia or Read 180 or Imagine Learning is one I'm most familiar with, you can look daily after a student has been on the program and see how they're doing. What this data dashboard will do is it'll be able to take, like Sarah was talking about, multiple measures. So when you look at the dashboard, you're not only looking at their language acquisition under this one program, but also how are they doing on SBAC, or how are they doing social emotionally? Are they getting referrals? What are the teacher comments, things like that. So it's kind of an overview of everything that'll allow instant access. I've seen somewhere, you click on it and it'll give a yellow for, things are looking okay, or maybe a big red blinking light, intervention needed, this child is not heading in the right direction.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I had one question. Did we have PK in the district this year?
We did not. We spoke with Teresa Guerrero a couple times, Yorgos and I. We just didn't have the interest that we wanted from the principals and parents. So this year we've sent out surveys right now for what principals want it, which principals want the program. Last year we had a program at River City. We wanted to have one also in the north side of town, and we just didn't have the participants that we wanted. So Teresa has said that she's going to work with the homeschool liaisons and try to find some more teachers in our district to help her with that. She's going to meet also with us over our summer program to really kick that off. So unfortunately, we did not have PK last year, but we're really looking to get it up and running this year. So anyone who can help us support getting community, what happens is our parents say they want it, but then when it came to actually enrolling, we didn't get very many. Last year we had an English class, a Spanish, and a Russian, but altogether I think we had less than 25 families.
Wow, that's
So,
disappointing,
yeah.
because every year I look forward to that, and I go to the graduations, and, I hope every year it's not promoted correctly.
Right.
And communication is not great, and I'd hate to see to lose that program, because it's so valuable to the parents. The non-English speaking parents, they were well represented every time I went. So I don't want to see that go by the wayside. I definitely want to do, I know Teresa personally, I talk with her a lot, and I see her going up and down California doing all these classes, and I would hate for West Sacramento to lose out on that program.
She was wonderful. She came to our parent university and did a talk with parents during that time, and she's talking with us now. So we are committed to keeping that program going, absolutely.
Because I did not hear a word about it this year, and that's what was disappointing. And in the past years, when PK was scheduled, it was a parent standing out front handing out flyers when it's open to all of West Sacramento. And so it's been a pet peeve of mine every year that communication gets out there, not just to the local school that's participating, but to all of our campuses. And I don't know if they still do it, but when I did it the first 2 years, they actually paid the parents to call the next district's parents to enroll them. And I think they paid us $1 a name, or $10. I don't think it was $10 a name. I think it was $1 a name, and maybe we called 80 parents for the next district. And so the district before us got the same opportunity where they should be calling our parents, getting them excited about it. So I don't know if that still happens, but it gives an opportunity for some parents to make a little bit of extra money by sitting there calling people. So I really don't want to lose this program.
I agree. And Teresa had some ideas. She said she had some contacts in West Sacramento that she was going to be reaching out to start that kind of a process.
Okay. Any more comments or questions? Thank you. I think I'll go ahead and, with that, close the public hearing on the Washington Unified School District LCAP Draft 2016-17 and Annual Update 2015-16. N2, I'll open the public hearing for the Washington Unified School District Budget Draft Fiscal 2016-2017. Mr. Scott Landsberger?
Good evening, how are you? I have two presentations for you tonight. They'll be brief. The first one is going to be on the May revise, and the May revise, as you know, is what ends up driving the last changes that are made to the budget before we present it to the board. What you have presented to you tonight is a draft budget, so you have the general fund, you have the multi-year projection, and you have the local control funding formula and the narrative at the beginning of the budget. In 2 weeks, we'll bring you the full budget, which will have all of the funds outside of the general fund, which would be early childhood education, cafeteria, facility funds, bond funds, and things along those lines. So what you have in the packet tonight is just a general fund because it is associated with the LCAP. But the May revise, I'll talk about it very briefly, is that the Prop 98 is still rising, but as we've said, it's slowing down. It's going to continue to slow down, and unlike in last year, in the year before, where the May revise had more money than what the governor had in his January budget proposal, this year it's the opposite. It's growing, but it's not growing as fast. So we have to start preparing for a slowdown. We've talked about it. Currently, the local control funding formula is implemented to fund the local control funding formula at 95.7% after this year. What that means is in between now and the time that the local control funding formula is fully funded in another 4 years, they'll only have to increase funding by 5%, and they will have met the obligation. I'll show you a chart that graphically shows what that does. There is no COLA this year. It was originally projected to be 0.47%. It's zero. It's actually good because in years past, if you recall, we actually had a negative COLA. So at least we don't have a negative COLA. Flat COLA is not great, but at least it's not a negative COLA. And the DOF projections assume that Prop 30 is going to expire, that low COLAs are going to happen over the next couple of years, and that Prop 98 is going to grow very slowly. Compared to 11-12, Prop 98 has gone up 24.6 billion over the last 5 years, and that's that like we said, that projection that went straight up. They started funding the local control funding formula a lot faster than they were originally expected to do. However, we will still have a maintenance factor at the end of this year of $908 million. Remember, that maintenance factor basically is a credit card that they owe to schools based on the way Prop 98 is calculated and how they actually fund it in the state budget. And as we said, once Prop 98 slows and the local control funding formula is fully funded, you'll see increases that are based on COLA, and COLA is anywhere from 2 to 4%, with the exception of this year, it is zero. As I said, zero COLA, so what does that mean for us? That means that everything outside the local control funding formula does not get an increase in funding. That'll be special ed. That'll be any of the categoricals or few categorical programs that are outside the local control funding formula. They do not get an increase in funding. You might see an increase in funding in early childhood education if they change and increase slots. And I do believe I have a slide that talks about that just a little bit too, as far as that block grant that the governor was talking about. So for us, again, the current year, it's going to fund 54.84%. 87% of the funding gap was funded through last year. By this year, 95.7%, no COLA. The 5.7% increase in the local control funding formula for the district this year generates about an additional $499 per ADA. This is the chart that I was talking about. The silver bars are where we have been funded in years past, and the projected funding for 16-17, assuming that the May revise becomes the adopted budget. That puts us at 95% of the funding gap from inception. And if you'll notice then, the growth between 16-17 and 2021 is very, very flat line. And that is all the more that the legislature would have to fund under the local control funding formula. And with Prop 98 slowing down, the concern is that you're not going to see these huge increases anymore. You're going to see increases that are going to follow that top red line. They're going to grow very, very slowly. They're not going to spike as they did in the previous 4 years. The funding factors for the local control funding formula with no COLA, they're flat. The supplemental concentration funding amounts are flat because there's no COLA. And so these are the dollar amounts for the per ADA for your class size plus the 20%, 50% supplemental concentration, how much you get per student. Discretionary funds, we will have discretionary funds again this year. It is one time. It is, has no particular requirement as far as its funding. It again is a repayment of prior year mandate costs that the district incurred. For this district, for the Washington Unified School District, it's going to generate about $1.7 million. It's actually $1,717,241. I can remember that number because 1717,241 just rolls. It's an easy number to remember. $237 per ADA. That dollar amount might change. In the budget subcommittees, they want the governor to go back to his original number, which is less than $237 per ADA. So we may have that changed by the time we come back to you in 2 weeks. The budget goes to the governor on the 15th, and we'll see what he does with it, and depending on the changes, we'll try and get those adjustments in as fast as we can. If not, we'll bring you a 45-day revise.
Scott, let me ask you a quick question.
Yes.
That 237 number,
Yes.
you're saying it's potentially going down?
That's correct.
Because that's what I have heard in many of the budget conferee sessions going on right now, is that the numbers are being cut to a certain extent. I haven't heard exactly how much, but they are going down.
Yeah, I don't recall the number in the January budget proposal. I want to say it was $215 per ADA, and that's what the budget subcommittees are doing. They put it back to the $215 versus the $237 that's in the May revise.
Okay.
These are the numbers, if you run the calculator for the Washington Unified School District, our per ADA funding with all things inclusive in the local control funding formula is about $9,180 per student. We're assuming that ADA is going to be flat, which would be a great thing for us because, mind you, we are technically in declining enrollment. We had 39 fewer students this year than we had last year. But as Gwen alluded to, ADA was great. It's over 96%. So our decline in ADA was not 39. It was only 16. So that's a great trend. If you're in declining enrollment and you can hedge that by having better ADA, it's always beneficial. We're going to assume that ADA is going to be flat at 7,245 students, gives us a revenue allocation under the local control funding formula of $66,507,833. And there's the calculation for your 1717,065. I think it's 234 because that number's wrong.
Can I ask a quick question about ADA?
Yes.
So we know that Lighthouse Charter School enrolled TK, kindergarten first, second, I believe. So if this year they were enrolling, you would expect it to be a smaller kindergarten, then might that then level us out? If say the same number of students going to kindergarten have gone in before to their school, then do you think that we would be impacted in the same way since there was more of an influx this year, possibly?
Yeah, potentially. But from the budgeting perspective, we're going to hold the current enrollment in ADA numbers because that's the guarantee.
Okay.
So we get a one-year buffer, unlike a charter school. When their enrollment in ADA goes down, their funding goes down. We have a one-year buffer. And so we'll always have 1 year to plan what we're going to do if we have declining enrollment. So from a budgeting perspective, to hold this number is a very safe bet because you're going to get no less than that.
Okay.
If we have an increase in enrollment and better ADA, then we'll be able to plug up a higher number in there. But for budgeting purposes, this is the best way to go.
Okay, thanks.
My favorite topic, CalPERS and CalSTRS, you get to watch that rate increase by 1.85% on CalSTRS. CalPERS goes close to 1.5% to 2%. The biggest thing to note about this is by 2021, both the retirement funds are going to look at a 19% contribution. So 19 cents of every dollar that is earned, you have to add on as an additional cost to pay into the retirement system. We do put this in the budget. We know what those dollar amounts are based on our current staffing, and so as you go through budget development, we increase our pension obligation every year. So it is in your budget and your multi-year projection.
Can I ask quickly, what is okay, so this, I know what our obligation is. What is the teacher's obligation to STRS for themselves? And then what is the employee's obligation to PERS for themselves?
Employee obligation to PERS, I believe, is 8%. And in this chart that is on slide 12, the employee obligation to STRS is the far right and the second far right column. It starts at, for 16-17, if you are a classic member, in other words, you've been in the system, it's 10.25%. If you are a post pension reform member, it's 9.2%. So that's what PERPA is, the public pension.
Public Employee Pension Reform Act.
Yeah, it's reform, however you say that. So those are the two columns. They're paying a different rate depending on when they entered the retirement system, or excuse me, the pension system itself. What did I have? I thought I had numbers there. No, I did not. Routine restricted maintenance. There was a new thing that came out. I don't know if everyone caught the school facility bond. It's on the November ballot. Everyone's going to go, great, let's pass the bond. There's a little piece of language in there that said, the current language for routine repair maintenance allows you to do the lesser of 2 as far as your percentage contribution, growing up to 3%, and by 2021, you have to have 3% of general fund expenditures that go into routine repair and maintenance. If the bond passes, this delay in going up to 3% is gone, and you have to be at 3% in the 16-17 year. If the bond passes in November and we don't have 3% in the budget, it's a mid-year cut because we immediately in the 16-17 budget have to go to a 3% contribution to the routine repair and maintenance account. Because of that, we put 3% in at budget development so that we would cover that. I think the bond's going to pass. Everyone else out there is saying, yes, you're going to get a school facility bond. So we went ahead and we put the additional 0.5%. It was at 2.5%. We moved it up to 3% for this year because we didn't want to have to make that adjustment in January, February.
Have you seen any polling on the bond?
Have I seen polling on it? No, I have not seen the polling on it.
I'm asking. Okay.
5%.
Everything I've heard those has been positive.
Okay.
Can you explain that one more time, just so I make sure that I understand the 3%, moving the 3% in, and why? Is that for matching funds? Why is that requirement there?
It's a legal requirement because this school district has received Perkins bond funds and school facility bond funds in years past. And once you take money from the state, you have to oblige by this, like, in perpetuity.
Okay.
So it is a legal requirement because we use state bond money to build schools in some capacity over however many years. I think the Carl Perkins was in the 80s is when that bond language came out. And so we have that money. We've had that money for Southport, for Bridgeway, for Stonegate, for River City. So, yeah, we're fully vested in this program. And it's a good program because what it does is it takes money and requires you to put money into ongoing maintenance of your facilities.
Okay.
So this is just a real quick Cliff Note version of the process. So both of the subcommittees have finished their work. It's gone to the floors. They finished their stuff. They're sending it to the governor by the 15th. We'll know soon after that what actually happens with the budget. We think what is in the May revise is going to be really, really close. The one thing that is not in this, I believe it's in the next presentation, I'll talk about the early childhood education block grant because neither house passed that forward as the governor had written it in the May revise. So that's keeps us status quo versus a change that we were expecting might happen. Any questions on this presentation?
No, but I do have a public comment, Scott. You want to step to the side, or, because you have the next presentation also?
I do.
Okay. So, Don Stoffer?
Good evening. Mostly in the form of questions on the budget. So what we think is going to be about $1.7 million in one-time funding, where will it appear in the budget? I assume it goes in the other state revenue. Will that be in the unrestricted column or in the restricted column, or a combination of the two? That's a question. In the audit, we see money that's set aside for repayment of our loans and our bonds. And I know some of that does not come out of general fund. But again, I'm coming back to the solar bonds themselves, the QSCAB and the other bonds. I believe those come out of general fund. And somewhere along the way, it would be great to look at the repayment of the bonds versus the energy saved by the solar. And I believe it was all supposed to be positive cash flow, but it'd be nice to see a report that actually shows that. And then on to the facilities bond itself. Where would the 3% routine restricted maintenance show up in the budget? Where would we see it in our budget report? And speaking of the facilities bond, my understanding is that it's going to have a negative effect on developer fees. And so it's kind of like a poison pill. And so I'm actually haven't read the language, but I'm going to be looking into it. But that's one of the reasons my association is not supporting the bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you get those questions, Linda? Is there any comments or questions from the board? With that, I'll close the public hearing on the Washington Unified School District Budget Draft Fiscal 2016-2017 and open the public hearing on N3, West Sacramento Early College Prep School's request for material revisions to its charter. Linda Luna, Superintendent.
President Cruz, we need to still address the budget draft before we move on to the next item.
Okay.
If Scott may just have a few minutes.
I'll be very quick.
Go through the draft of the multi-year projected budget that the board will be approving at the next board meeting.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Closed it too soon? I'll reopen it.
Reopened, okay. So here's your budget for 16-17. 5 major points. Again, we talked about this a little bit, but just so you know, the calculator that we use is version 17.1B. It increases funding for the district by 6.13%, uses a funding gap percentage of 54.84%. That is from the Department of Finance. It's the 4th budget that we've done with the local accountability plan. And it funds year 3 of the local accountability plan and acknowledges the STRS and PERS increase, $582,380 and $127,351 respectively. Has one-time discretionary revenues of $1,717,124. And funding outside the local control funding formula, as I said, receives 0 COLA. And year 4 of the VAPA plan and year 3 of the technology plan are also funded. Calculations really quick. The target is $70.3 million. Again, the target, which is what we would like funding, or what funding will be in 2021 based on our current population and the current state of the budget. And out of that $70.3 million target, the district's phase-in entitlement is $67.122 million. The spending plan increases. I'll go back to this really quick. At that $67.122 million, you have, you'll see just to the right of the bottom red circle, you'll see the change over prior year of 6.13% or $3.8 million. So 6.13% generates $3.8 million in additional revenue. So the 16-17 spending plan increases are in the unrestricted general fund for ongoing costs. There's $366,500 worth of increased expenditures. The local control accountability plan has $804,726 of new expenditures. In there are what as Gwen talked about, the 3 VAPA teachers are in these dollars. Ongoing expenditures for the unrestricted general fund is $2.3 million, and that is inclusive of the PERS and STRS increase, step and column, staffing formulas for River City High and YOLO, and other things that have happened throughout the year that we've already clicked in and you bring on in the new year. There's things that you necessarily can't say no to per se. We have to pay the STRS increase, we have to pay the PERS increase, and they're embedded in that $2.3 million. The total unrestricted general fund one-time expenditures are $1.3 million. That is primarily your textbook adoption. We did purchase the textbooks this year. They were paid for, but they were paid as a prepaid expense, and so the expenditure will be moved to next year since it's next year's textbook adoption. But the textbooks are actually already in the district's warehouse, and we'll pay the bills and roll the cost into next year. So that's the primary cost in your one-time cost is your textbook adoption. So total new expenditures that are rolling through this budget are $4.8 million. So the risks that are associated with the 16-17 budget is we've talked about Prop 98 is slowing. The 2016 funding gap, the amount of revenue that generate this year is less than 50% of the revenue that was generated in 15-16. So that $3.8 million, if you were to look at that 15-16 number, it is like 7.9. So we're getting less than 50% as far as the revenue increase. Even though that funding gap percentage number is very high, the amount of revenue it generates is not anywhere near it was doing last year. It's trending down real fast.
Is that based on the extension of Prop 30 or non-extension of Prop 30?
Non-extension of Prop 30.
Okay.
DOF is non-extension of Prop 30.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. Have you calculated the numbers should Prop 30 extend?
No, we've used the Department of Finance numbers.
Okay. So you haven't done a best-case scenario on this. Is it possible for you to do that in the future to figure out what is potentially available?
We could look into that, but at this point, unless someone can give me something that's coming out of Prop 30 that says schools will get X dollars guaranteed in the state budget, it's speculative.
Well, even speculative would be helpful.
I will see what I can put together for you.
We know that it's between 8 to 11 or 12 billion to the general fund, so we can at least take some sort of guesstimate at putting, I don't mind the caveat of ballpark.
Yeah.
I certainly don't, but I would like to at least have an idea of what happens if this should happen.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and put something together, and I think what we'll see with that too is really the driving factor of school funding is not going to be Prop 30. It's Prop 98. So
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do to blend the two together, get someone to give us an opinion on what that might look like. As I said in the prior presentation, there's a maintenance factor. So just by virtue of the fact that a maintenance factor continues is an indication that Prop 98 is slowing down, because if Prop 98 were still running down the tracks, we will not have a maintenance factor at the end of 16-17. The fact that we have one, it's almost $1 billion, is pause for cause. Potential for declining enrollment is still there. Like I said, we declined 36 students, but the ADA was better, so we didn't feel the entire brunt of declining enrollment. And as we talked about, the Prop 30 ballot initiative, because at this point there is support, but there's not an extension on the ballot yet. Your three-year forecast for 16-17, 17-18, 18-19 shows a budget that is fiscally solvent. On the bottom of this diagram, you see the future year, 17-18, 18-19, the changes to the funding gap. This is a significant change from what we had in the governor's January budget proposal. Those two numbers on the bottom, the 73.96% and the 41.22%, at the time that we had the January budget proposal, those numbers were 45.34 and 6.15. So they've increased these numbers significantly. Again, they're pushing through, and they're gonna end up funding. And once they fund the local control funding formula, those year-over-year increases are gonna be really, really small, because they're gonna be Prop 98 and COLA driven.
Can you say that second number again? It was 45.35, and then what was the second?
Yeah, the two numbers that you see, the 73.96 in the January budget proposal, that number was 45.34.
Okay.
And the 41.22, that number was 6.15.
Yeah.
So when we were doing our projections before, that 6.15 is a number that scared us, because it produced $300,000 in year-over-year revenue. So that number's gotten better, and it is reflective in this multi-year projection. And even in this multi-year projection, with everything else assuming flat enrollment in this, which is a good thing with the current decline in enrollment, you'll see that the third year out, your unrestricted general fund is deficit. There are some one-time revenues and one-time expenditures flowing through, but it does show the potential for deficit in the third year out because it slows down. Remember, 45% of a dollar this year versus 45% of a dollar next year, it's half of that because it paid up. And so 45% doesn't produce big numbers. When you've only got a little bit left, 100% is only going to produce a little bit.
Can I ask, but what we had budgeted out for and expected for this year, we've gone above what we were expecting for. So we must have then quite a bit of one-time monies there when you look at that piece of where our budget was and where we are.
Yeah, if you look
PD
at
or common.
if you look at the difference in between the unrestricted revenue in 2016-17 of 7.1 million and unrestricted revenue in 17-18 of 7.2 million, you notice that doesn't grow by $2.7 million because there is one-time money in the 16-17 revenues of $1.7 million.
Okay.
Don't see that.
The very top,
Where are you? I'm
the
sorry,
very
where are
top,
you?
your three-year projection, 16-17, 17-18, 18-19. 16-17 unrestricted has $70.185 million.
Oh, you said 7.1 million.
No, 70.
Okay, it sounded like 7.
And then the growth to the next year, which is 71.2 million, doesn't match the amount of money that the funding gap is generating on the bottom. And the reason why is because the one-time money is taken out in 17-18 because it's only in 16-17.
Okay.
Okay? We'll be bringing you this document. This is a new document that we have to produce every year. It's that fund balance reserve, excess reserve document, and it basically says, here's your projected fund balance. Here's the state minimum for your district as far as a reserve of 3%. What is the rest been designated for? And this is following identical to what was brought to you last year as far as the 4 other designations outside of the additional 3.5% that is needed to meet the board policy for a fund balance of 6.5%. And the rest of them, as money moves in and out of that fund balance, we're moving them between those 4 designations proportionally. So what is not in the 16-17 budget? Any additional salary and benefit costs. They're not in the budget, they're not in the multi-year projection. Purchase of fleet vehicles are not included in capital outlay. And the early childhood development block grant is not in this budget and will not be the one that we bring to you in 2 weeks because we don't think it's going to make it. If the governor blue lines that into the budget, we'll bring it as a 45-day revise. But based on everything that we've heard and with both subcommittees taking it completely out of their budget document that they sent to the governor, we're not sure he's going to be able to sell that like he did the local control funding formula. But if he does, we'll bring it back as a 45-day revise, which would be...
Can you clarify what that is paid for? Has that paid for the TK? Can you clarify what we've?
If he gets his block grant, it is preschool and TK all rolled into one. And he has a hold harmless that says you'll get at least what you got last year, this year. But it's not really clear how that program would go forward. There's concerns about facilities and how that runs because state preschool is completely different as far as the way it funds by slot versus the way you fund TK, which is funded on the regular local control funding formula, X amount of dollars per kid. And you get limited slots with state preschool. And TK, if 500 kids show up, you have to educate 500 kids. So that's why I think it's not going through like the governor had hoped, is because the unknown cost.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, next up, 45-day revise, depending on what happens when the governor signs the budget. If there's a material revision to our budget that is required, we will bring that back to you, show you that material revision, and move forward with the budget. I would imagine the budget that we're going to bring to you in 2 weeks will be as much as we can make change to with the time that we have to post a budget for the meeting and the fact that the governor doesn't get it from the legislature to the 15th, what you see in the budget tonight is going to be very close to what you see in 2 weeks. Questions?
This is not so much directed at you in as much as is to the staff in general. Do we rely pretty much solely on CSBA to advocate to the legislature on behalf of the district for budgeting at budget committees, subcommittees, what have you?
I'm aware that AXA, which is the Association for California School Administrators, they take pretty proactive approaches in speaking before the legislature on specific items like this as well.
Yeah, I was at a lot of the budget subcommittee hearings, and I didn't see CSBA, and since they represent the school boards, that's, I guess, one of my concerns is, and I just want to make this statement, that I believe that we need, as a board and as a district, to have a more active role in the legislature and be more proactive in getting our views heard over at the Capitol. So, thank you.
I do have a public comment. Linda McMahon?
Thank you. Just a question regarding set-asides on Common Core. It's at 1.2.
I'm sorry, Linda, I'm not really hearing you. I don't know if you could put the microphone closer or
Sure.
better. Thank you.
Okay. Just a couple of questions regarding Common Core and material, textbook material. Common Core set-aside is 1.2 million. I do believe I saw a textbook section of the district's budget, but I was wondering about lottery funds. Is $1.3 million at this point, and I think lottery funds is also usually earmarked for textbooks. So I was just questioning how the money would be used in the set-aside, how that would differ for the textbook money set aside at $1.3 million in your lottery fund.
Thank you. Is there any more comments or questions?
I have a few questions. One, if I know that you had written down the questions that were asked earlier as well, and so if we could also get at one point answers to that, that would be good. If that could be shared with everyone, and then I did have some questions when I looked over the budget. They don't have to be answered now necessarily, but maybe if they could be given to us before it comes back. And that would be travel, conferences. There's quite a bit of money set aside for that. It would be nice to know how much of that has actually been used in the past with conferences and travel. The professional development was also one I had looked at. I know that there was a lot of money spent this last year on PD. Probably moving forward, not that same amount would be spent, but that would be one to look at, is how much was that actually. I know that in our LCAP, it talks about having materials that are aligned with Common Core in terms of instruction, and why textbooks are very, have a purpose. There are certainly times, for example, I was in a teacher's classroom recently who was at the history project, and my work with the history project, we don't crack that textbook very often in my classroom, but we are definitely teaching those standards. We're going a whole lot deeper. And so there are places where, there are supplemental materials. You are absolutely teaching those standards, but they're done in a little bit different way. So that is something I just want us to be aware of and keep in the back of our mind with certain subjects and certain things that are happening. Another question I had, site budget. I know that at Elkhorn, they're losing quite a bit of funding this year. Am I correct in the QIA money? No? Okay.
He's saying yes.
Yeah.
The QUIA money that they had was a rollover, and they had enough money for a couple years to do some additional work. And so, yeah, they do have some reduction in funding for QUIA, but QUIA was also developed to have class sizes be below what they were in the rest of the district. And so their class sizes have been adjusted to match what is being staffed at the rest of the schools within the district. So they did have a loss of funding for QUIA, but it was specialized funding for specialized purpose, and the purpose is no longer required.
Didn't they, though, also use a lot of that for professional development?
I'd have to go back and look at the specifics as far as what they did, but I do believe they did use it for some professional development.
Okay, so that might be a place I'm just thinking about, since I had asked about professional development, where money could be looked at or adjusted possibly. And then I think that was, was there one more place? Sorry, thank you very much for bearing with me right now. Okay, those are my questions for this. And then I'll also say that CSBA has a master's in governance class on budgets in the fall, and I will be signing up for that. So, not that you haven't done a fabulous job giving it to us, but I'm long overdue for signing up. Thanks.
Me too.
More comments or questions? Okay, I will really now close the public hearing of the N2 Washington Unified School District Budget Draft Fiscal Year 2016-2017. I will open the public hearing for the West Sacramento Early College Prep Charter Schools request for material revisions to its charter. Linda Luna.
Thank you, President Cruz, Board of Trustees. At its June 1st, 2016 meeting, the Governing Board of the West Sacramento Early College Prep Charter School approved material revisions to its existing charter to change the charter school's governance and operations from that of an independently operated charter school to a district-operated dependent charter school. On or about June 3rd, 2016, the material revision request was submitted to the district for approval. In today's public hearing, it is required by Education Code as part of the material revision process so that the board may consider the level of support for the material revision requests submitted to the district by West Sacramento Early College Preparatory School. Our current status, as I said before, that the board had approved material revisions. This evening, you are able to review those material revisions for the petition of 2016-17. And basically, in a nutshell, the material revisions addresses the governance from independent to dependent status. Before we talk about the collaboration and work ahead, what I would like to do is to introduce to the board, I'm going to skip this slide here, introduce to the Board of Directors that are present this evening here in our board meeting. We have Dr. Harold Levine, who is the Dean of Education at UC Davis. I'll just have him stand, and then he's going to come up and say a few words in a minute. We also have Renee Maldonado, who is a community member of West Sacramento, and she's here this evening. And we also have the director of the Early College Prep School, Jessica Anderson. And so this evening, what I would like to do as part of this public hearing, I'd like to invite Dr. Harold Levine, who is currently the president of the West Sacramento Early College Prep Board, to say a few words in support of the revision.
Good evening. President Cruz, trustees, Superintendent Luna, staff, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. West Sac Prep, as you know, I think, was founded 9 years ago to serve the needs of our districts and counties' underserved students. Then, as now, we want to provide the highest quality of educational opportunities for students who come to us already behind in basic skills, who come from low-income families, who would be the first in their family to attend college, and or who have a language other than English as their first language. Then, as now, our primary goal is the engagement of students in their own learning. Then, as now, we want to provide students with the hands-on experiences and the habits of mind and analytic skills to succeed beyond high school, whether it be for a college education or to enter the world of work. West Sac Prep, again, as you already know, is a legal partnership of a limited liability corporation between Washington Unified School District, the Los Rios Community College District, represented by Sacramento City College, and the University of Colorado, the University of California, represented by the UC Davis School of Education. The West Sac Prep Board has legal and fiduciary responsibility for the school. Our school has seen some extraordinary successes over its 9 years and some real challenges. In the days when the state had STAR testing and the API, our school scores were a virtual roller coaster. 1 year high, the next year low, up and down, and up and down. We have had some extraordinary leadership that also, at one point a few years ago, lost its way and lost the confidence of some of our teachers and some of our families. Then, when we hired a new director, we had families who were thrilled with the changes that had to be made, and others who liked the school the way it was. And then I have to say ditto for the teachers who were then on board. Keeping our enrollment numbers up has been perhaps our greatest challenge. Although the school has maintained financial viability through this 2015-2016 school year, and we have never had any findings in our annual audits. In the 2014-15 school year, we had our scheduled WASC accreditation visit, and I think in a pretty accurate picture of where we were as a school, pointed out a number of areas of improvement that were needed, which I have to add we had also identified in advance for them before the site visit. The result was they placed us on a 1-year probation. We took the findings of the WASC report with the utmost seriousness. And our new director, Jessica Anderson, whom you've just been introduced to, with full support of the West Sac Board, led the school through a host of changes to better serve our students and community. The result, a year later, this past spring, I'm very happy to say, was a complete turnaround for our school. These change efforts were rewarded with a 5-year WASC accreditation, almost unheard of after a 1-year probation. So we feel like we are really, again, on the right track. And last week, as Superintendent Luna showed you a picture of, we graduated 18 wonderful seniors, students whose lives I think have been fundamentally impacted by the educational opportunities our school has provided them, and all of whom have plans for a 2- or 4-year college career. Now, tonight, we are looking at the further evolution of the school. After much deliberation, the Charters Board believes the school is best served by merging it with the district, becoming a dependent charter within the district. In this scenario, the governance of the school would change fundamentally such that direct legal and fiduciary responsibility would, of course, now reside with Washington Unified. Our current limited liability corporation and board would be dissolved in favor of an advisory board comprised of representatives from Sacramento City College, UC Davis, the district, of course, and others as spelled out in the material revisions in front of you. There are, we believe, many advantages to this arrangement. West Sac Prep would represent another school of choice within the district for students and their families, adding to your growing number of educationally sound options to provide both career technical and college-going readiness. The proposal would enhance further and deeper collaborations between the schools in the district and this charter and its partners, Sacramento City and UC Davis. From the charter's point of view, it would provide some economies of scale, which we desperately need, back office support, recruitment support, and a greater community of professional educators for our principal and our teaching staff. We think it is a solid engagement with everyone benefiting. I'm happy, of course, to take any questions, but let me say again and emphasize how supportive the Board of West Sac Prep is for the evolution of this evolution of our mission and impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? Board Member Pizzati?
Yeah. I have a couple of questions. With the merging with the district, I guess with becoming a dependent charter, would the staff and the teachers now become district employees?
Yes.
And they would now become subject to the collective bargaining agreements therein?
Correct.
Okay, great. And then, can you give me some of the areas in which that you received needed to improve when you were placed on probation? I'm not, like I said, I'm new to this process, and I wasn't here when all of this went down, so I kind of would like to hear a little bit about the background that got to this point.
Sure. I'm going to call up Jessica Anderson, too, who's the director, too, who was very much working on this day and night. So let me have her also help answer that question.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you. Hello, board members. The primary areas of concern that the WASC team identified, and as Harold said to you earlier, Dr. Levine said, we self-identified as well. When I first got to the school in July of 2014, I went through what they were doing, and I looked at the work that had been left behind over the summer to acclimate myself as the new director as to what was going on at the school. I did a lot of reading, and then discussed some things with the staff when they came back to school, and we put together this WASC report. And what we self-identified and what the WASC team identified was that we needed a curriculum. At the time, there was no curriculum at the school. They were project-based learning and doing an inquiry-based structure, but they were not following an adopted curriculum. And what the WASC team identified was that in not following an adopted curriculum, that the Common Core was not being followed.
Right.
And so we went on to adopt a curriculum. We aligned our instruction to Common Core, and we changed the structure of the school as to the teachers that we were hiring as well. We went more with single subject teachers as opposed to multiple subject, because what we had found as well is that not all the courses that needed to be covered were being covered in a manner that the WASC team found acceptable. So we changed all of that. And those are the main things. There were some smaller things that they identified as well and that we had also identified, but that was the crux of it all. A whole year later, well, before they actually even got there, we had started making some of these changes. And by the time that they arrived, we had a curriculum, we were Common Core aligned. All of our teachers were credentialed in the subjects that they were teaching.
I mean, they weren't before that?
Well, that would be correct at the time.
Continue, sorry.
Right. Oh, we adopted, yeah. And within our curriculum, so some highlights of this, though, that I wanted to mention to you is that earlier there was a discussion about technology going on and the platform that you're going to be using to gather data. In the curriculum that we adopted, we actually went pretty high-tech at West Sac Prep, and we ended up going one-to-one Chromebooks with the kids. We adopted an A through G approved curriculum through Edmentum. That's the umbrella company. The curriculum itself is called Plato. And within that were assessments. That was the other thing. I did forget this one, is that we needed to be more data-driven. And so when we were looking for a curriculum, I wanted to ensure that we were able to pull data from the sources that we were using. So we adopted this curriculum that's housed in a learning management system. And when we started using the learning management system, what we realized, it wasn't as adaptable as we wanted to add in more curriculum and projects and things. So we pulled over into a second one called Schoology. So we were using our curriculum out of Edmentum and Plato, and then supplementing and adding worth to that curriculum for a bigger bang within the Schoology platform. So all of these things were very pleasing to WASC, and as you've already heard, we went from being on probation to getting a 5-year accreditation with a mid-cycle review. And I'm very proud of the work that we did as a school to do that.
Well, congratulations on getting back to where you are. I will say
Thank you.
that it is shocking to me that a limited liability corporation that receives effectively public funding has not adopted a curriculum. And that to me is scary. That is very scary. So I'm really interested in knowing, how was that allowed to transpire? Was there no oversight? Was there no, anyway, I understand that I'm kind of rehashing past bad practices, but since I'm new to this whole school board system and adopting charter schools and things like that, and what is the oversight function, I really would like to know, how did it get to be there? How did it get to be that way?
Absolutely.
So having an independent charter approved under the Washington Unified School District, the Washington Unified School District's responsibility is oversight of the independent charter. Our responsibility as the oversight entity is to ensure that charter programs are implementing their original petition and their original intent of specific specialized programs that are not offered in our own district. So in the manner of which this year we have ramped up some of the oversight of our charters that we have in our district, I myself have gone out to the charter schools themselves and gone into classrooms. I've also had other educational services staff go out and visit classrooms as well. Our partnership with West Sacramento Early College Prep is a little bit different in that the superintendent actually has consistent ongoing meetings with the board of directors of the early college prep schools. So the former superintendent was on the actual board of directors, attending every month meeting with the board. So this year our oversight has been a little bit different. My experience does have a little bit more charter background from my former school districts. And so we're in a new day. And we have
Right.
changed dramatically this year, the oversight as the Washington Unified School District.
Thank you, Superintendent.
You're welcome.
Any more questions, comments? Board Member Alcala?
Yeah, I just have one. You mentioned that the Limited Liability Corporation, the Board of Directors, existed, and now you were going to have an advisory board. Are any of the old members going to remain on this advisory board?
The advisory board calls for 2 representatives from UC Davis. So one is the dean of the School of Education or his or her designee, and one will be, in order to give it broader campus-wide support, will be either the provost or his or her designee. So that will broaden the impact, I think, that UC Davis can have. So that second person is new. Would be new for the advisory board. And then Sacramento City is also going to have 2, where now it has 1. And then we will have a student, a parent, and I can't remember, it's in the material revisions, but we're looking at a board of about 8.
But none of the old board is going to be on
Well,
the
I will continue
advisory?
serving on the board as an advisory capacity, and Art Pimentel, who is the dean of the West Sacramento campus of Sacramento City College, who's a relatively recent addition to the board with his relatively new position, he will continue on.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
Hi, I have a couple questions first, and one would be, what are your number right now projected of students who are continuing, who are there currently and who are going to be staying? Are you keeping, do you think, a high percentage of your students?
I'm going to look to Jessica to answer. I don't actually know the details.
Yeah.
You know, we just graduated 18 of them.
Yes, congratulations on that.
So that's a little bit of a complicated question in that we have chosen, moving forward, that we are not going to have a 6th through 8th grade. Because in effect, you're running two separate programs and they don't blend well together. When you're focusing, high school is a whole different animal when it comes to transcripts and courses that require single subject teachers and so on. So we'll be losing those 35 to 40 students. It was about 35 kids. So we're coming forward with about 33 kids right now. It is our sincerest hope that once the board makes their decision that should we join your district, that we then are able to collaborate together to recruit students into the program.
Okay, and hopefully collaborate together, period,
Yes.
also.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No,
yes,
that's,
yeah.
absolutely.
How many of your teachers who are there currently or who have been there are staying or who are currently there?
Again, an interesting question. So we had teachers that, when we were discussing bringing folks over into the district, their credentials were not meeting the minimum standards. So even though we would have brought them forward, that wasn't going to work. Well, and let me explain that. They're good teachers and they're in teaching programs, internships and such, but we're in a state that has 75,000 teachers short. It's very difficult when you're a very tiny charter school to recruit teachers who have years and years of experience and are fully credentialed. So we took on some teachers that had that were new to teaching, and they were in internship programs. So, and they were good teachers, and they are good teachers, but that wasn't going to work coming over. And then we had another teacher that had a family situation, and he was actually our technology director, and he wanted to go back into the teaching program, but he felt like building a new program was going to be too tough on them because of a family medical thing that was going on with them, so he won't be coming through. So, and then another teacher just wanted to seek bigger grounds. So we're going to be starting with 4 new teachers next year at the secondary level. And we're coming over with staff. And so myself, the office secretary, and our counselor.
Okay, so have those 4 new teachers then been hired yet?
We are working closely with your HR department, who is terrific, I might add, to hire people. And today I sent an email requesting to offer 3 teachers that we've interviewed thus far, positions at the school, in science, social science, and English. And then we have not yet interviewed anyone for math because it's a very, very small pool statewide. And so we're working on that.
Okay. Is there a plan for what will happen if, I know we have a hard time as well with our math teachers, is there a plan for what you'll do if you're, find ourselves not with a math teacher, or what we'll do, I guess, as well with you? We don't know yet.
Well, I don't want to tell you there's no plan because that would be untrue. However, the plan is in my head, and I haven't actually discussed it so much with HR. And I think it might be putting the cart before the horse. I don't want to tell you something that's not going to happen. But there's a couple of ideas I have for how we can make this work.
Okay. I'll say that philosophically, this is one reason why, in general, I think some of the issues that have come out here that you felt are why it's hard to support, not this program, not here, I'm supportive, but charters in general when they come forward, because there are some challenges. Philosophically, I think that this is 100% the right place, because UC Davis, Sac City, I mean, these are our public universities who have so many resources. And when we think about advisory boards, of course, our advisory boards at our schools are made up of fabulous people and parents that care, and we are so proud of them. But when you talk about an advisory board, I mean, you are coming with people who are leaders, not just in the region, but in, the state and the country. And so I visited West Sac Charter years ago, and I worked actually very closely with one of your former staff members through the UC Davis Writing Project, and saw her student work and what she was bringing in that process. And I will say, it was very good stuff at that time, and it's been very sad to see kind of where things have gone and staff has gone. The conversations around students, around student learning was some of the best discussions that I've seen, absolutely. And so some of the comments here actually almost go where you've had to go with WASC, almost go against some of that early philosophy, to be perfectly honest with you. The philosophies, I'm having a hard time sometimes even seeing the match. In terms of adopted curriculum, I will say Natomas Charter School does not, they use a lot of supplemental materials. And so it's really, how are you teaching the standards and what are you doing? Because there was some inquiry and PBL stuff that was happening that I could see, if as long as it being thoughtful and really done well, could have fit really well. So I do forgive those pieces of it, but clearly there's work to be done, a lot of work to be done, and some real challenges that we're taking on. But I think that this can be a really important partnership, and I think as we move forward, it's really important that we work with our public agencies like this, that you're not an island, because UC Davis, Sac City, those are too big of places not to be sharing expertise.
I had a question. How many classrooms or classes do you plan on having in the fall?
In the fall, do you mean like on my master schedule, like what we're offering, or do you mean in general? I don't know an exact number, but we plan on offering all the core courses that students need in order to hit graduation. So we'll have English 1 through 4, we'll have biology and chemistry, we'll have, we're going to move to integrated math 1 and 2 and 3, because the district has moved to that. And for science, see, I said science, so social studies. We will have, world history, American history, and economics. I'd like to see us do micro and macro economics and have our students take American government at the college level, so that because we are an early college prep school. However, if we're not able to pull that off, then we'll just do the macroeconomics one semester and government the next.
So you're losing 6th through 8th grade, right?
We
So what are
are.
we looking at, 1 through 4? Or what grade levels are we teaching?
9 through 12. That's all 9 through 12th grade.
Okay, so okay.
We'll be a high school.
So of the 9 through 12, how many classrooms will you have?
I'll have 4 classrooms. I'll have social science, English, and math. And then we'll be using a classroom for the counselor and the front office. And we've been working closely with the Yolo County, with SCOE, in order they're expanding their preschool program as well. So they'll be taking up part of the campus, a few more rooms.
And you mentioned staff, secretary, and yourself, and a counselor. I would assume there'd be a principal. It's not our, is it? It's not
I
our
will be the principal.
Okay. I just want to make sure,
yeah.
because I didn't hear the word principal, so I didn't know
yeah.
if it was going to be assumed
It's a great
that
question.
our principal, because is on that campus, is going to oversee that too. So I just want to make sure. I think Mr.
Great
Pizzati had.
question.
Yeah. Since your staff will now be district employees, will they receive district salaries? Will the WTA, or what's negotiated in their contract for salaries, and CSCA, what they've negotiated in their contract for salaries, be the same at your school?
At least the same, yes.
At least the same? You mean you might
Well,
offer more?
Well, no, I'm not going to offer that one. Yes, they'll be the same. We're going to have a little bit of a unique structure.
Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, with the students, we'll just be a smaller campus and smaller classes, and we're encouraging our students to take college classes and be proactively dual enrolled at the college level. So with that, our kids will be doing both things. They'll be taking high school and college courses, which was always something they've been doing. They did it this year as well, and they do it at River City as well. So yes, our employees will be on your salary schedule.
Okay, so what does that have to do? Okay, I'm not sure with that answer what you meant. Can you help me out here?
Yes, absolutely. So what we're working towards, let me go back to that slide if I may. What we're working towards is a transition. So next year, should the board approve the governance change into a dependent charter status, the 2016-17 school year will be a year of transition from the independent structure of West Sacramento Early College Prep to implementing and opening in 2017 a middle college high school program.
Right.
Which is very similar to what we have always known as early college prep. So in doing that, a middle college high school program has a different sort of a structure because it's all about dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is,
So these will be part-time teachers then?
no, they are full-time teachers. So we are going to work towards replicating the model that is currently in San Joaquin County. And that's the particular program, the Middle College High School program, that is run out of Lodi Unified School District. So it is a dependent charter middle college high school that is actually located on the San Joaquin Delta College Community campus. Now, we may not be able to be located on West Sac Center. However, West Sac Center is going to be our dual enrollment of community college courses. So what that means in a middle college program, that particular program has in the morning, the teachers start a little bit later. So their schedule is still exactly, the work hours are still the same, but they start later in the morning because the college courses are offered in the morning. Students go to college in the morning. The high school teachers are available for the mentoring, for the advising, because kids, their college courses are Tuesday, Thursday, or it could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so it may not be every day. Could be avid mentoring and avid counseling as well. In the afternoon, that is when the students take their high school courses, and that's when they'll be receiving their English, their math, their social studies, and their science. So it's a little bit of a different structure. All of that has to be worked out after the board has taken the motion to approve the independent status into a dependent status so that we can then enter into collaboration with Washington Teachers Association to work out all of those kinds of programmatic changes which will be made over the year coming up to be implemented in 2017.
Okay. I guess that sort of answers my question, but maybe I'm not understanding it entirely. You're telling me that at least the teachers will be at the same salary schedule
Yes.
as the teachers in our district?
That is correct. There will be no different salary schedule per se.
Will they be working the same amount of hours?
The same amount of hours.
Same amount of days?
Same amount of days.
Okay. So
It
their
just will-
salary at the end of the day is going to be exactly the
Right.
same? Okay.
But, all of that, we can't negotiate that out loud.
No. I'm just saying, I just wanted to know what it is that they're going to be, I want to make sure we're not competing against each other for teachers and staff.
No, these are Washington Unified
Okay,
School
that's what I wanted
District
to make sure I
teachers.
was abundantly clear when I get
Washington
the
Unified
answer.
School District teachers,
Okay.
yes. And the board will have study sessions on that next year.
Okay.
As we create that program and put that language in place. Tonight is, this public hearing and information is really about the governance structure. Because in order to make those plans and create that program and have those collaborations, we first have to change the governance structure in order to do that. So lots of questions will come even more next year. And then we'll be able to just define and describe and create along the way. Lots of models out there already. So in doing so, what we're looking at for next year are some pretty basic things, such as teachers going into training, ensuring that they are trained in AVID and AVID certified. We have that here in Washington Unified. So specific schools do run AVID and are AVID certified, and any new teachers that are hired for those grades do get AVID certified, so we'll do the same for this particular program. We will also work on program recruitment, and we are unable to recruit anything for this particular program until after the board changes the governance structure. And I also want to answer about the middle school kids. The middle school kids did not disappear. Jerry Smith, our Director of Student Support Services, met alongside Jessica Anderson with every middle school family member to determine a placement here in Washington Unified School District if it was appropriate for them to come back and try to make it a successful transition in coming back.
Okay, that adds another question. So we just saw what our ADA was for the year. Are we calculating the middle school kids from early
College prep.
Early college prep back into our school system?
First, we're flatlining because we don't know yet. We will know the first 3 weeks of school period. That's our normal and standard operations as we wait to see the whites of the eyes of the students.
And how many kids were there at least in that range that could potentially
I don't
become-
have that number right here with me, but I can get that information to you from Jerry Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The other part of our work is to work on an MOU with the Los Rios Community College, West Sacramento Center, so that we ensure that we have a clear partnership with how the dual enrollment courses will be implemented. We're also going to ramp up the monitoring of all the student placements here in Washington Unified. That's the focus area for next school year after the board has changed the governance structure. Following that, we're going to also work on the material revisions for the petition to implement in 2017. So there's a lot of work ahead. And so we're going to go step by step along the way and ensure that the board is fully aware of any kinds of creation, any kinds of program implementation, and any additional costs that come to the district that must be brought to the board.
Board Member Alcala, do you have
I
a
had one question. I missed the number, I'm sorry. You're going to have 33 students enrolled. How many are African American and Latino?
I don't know.
I don't know the numbers precisely, so what I can do is ensure that I get the numbers for you and hand them over to Superintendent Luna and have her share them with you.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
I'll just say I knew some of this presentation because we had met earlier, and so I knew a lot of these pieces, which led me to feel more confident in it. But this was definitely a bumpy conversation tonight, and so we'll need to make sure that when we're speaking out with the public, that we really have our ducks in a row, because there are some things that came up that I know we'll need to be ready to answer and to talk about in a way that is very succinct. So thank you very much.
Board Member Alcala?
I just had one more question. Last year, I believe you said you had about 90 students. Do you know how many African American and Latinos you had out of those 90?
Not off the top of my head, I don't. The majority of our students were of Latino, but again, I would rather give you exact numbers, so I will get those for you.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and close the public hearing for the West Sacramento Early Charter Prep School's request for material revisions to its charter. We are to information discussion items. 01, Measure V update follow-up, Kevin Sanders or Scott Landsberg.
Or Scott looking like Kevin.
Kevin's ill. He really wanted to be here, but he was ill and he just wasn't going to be able to make it in tonight, so I'm subbing for him. This is going to be a very quick review. We came to you a month ago with an update on Measure V because there were some concerns, and so we said, okay, we need to get some direction from the board on where we're going to allocate funding under the program. This is the priority list from October 9, 2014 that shows how you were breaking down the $47 million bond initiative and the priority list of A and B. What we've currently done to date, we've done $500,000 in roof replacement, $600,000 in some electrical wiring. It was specifically the fire alarm for Bridge by Island. We had a bridge system and it needed to be corrected. The K8 expansion of Bridge by Island and phase 1 of Bright CTE. This is a projection of where we think the money is going based on that original prioritization list from 2014. And you'll notice there's a $2.8 million number on the bottom because the priority list that the board developed was for $47 million. Better environment when we set up the bonds to sell, and we're going to actually have $49.8 million in bond funds for projects versus 47. So a very quick recap of costs. This is the issue that brought this to the forefront was the building at River City High School. So the original design that was done by a DIR in 2006, if it were built in 2005 when River City was being built, it would have been $22 million to construct. Current cost estimates are coming in at $27 million. And you had a couple of options that we brought forward. One was a 10 classroom, dry classroom design that was $10 million. And the second one was a modified design which had 4 dry classrooms and 4 science classrooms, and that was going to be $10.4 million. So what we're looking for is there's 3 options that the board has. Your first option is to continue the program as it was originally designed, and that had for the River City High School $10 million allocated out of the 47. We could proportionally move that additional $2.8 million, so it would be a little bit more. We just moved that $2.8 million proportionally to the remaining projects. Or you could put the whole thing to River City.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
The original project list had $10 million for River City High School. That was based on a $47 million project fund. Your project fund is going to be $49.8. So you have $2.8 million that we could either proportionally move to all the other projects, or you could put the whole thing just to River City High School. Okay?
Okay.
So you can keep the original plan. You can do building assumption number 2, which is 10 dry classrooms, or not wet classrooms, be a 2-story building, and Kevin showed you architectural rendering of what that might look like. Or you can modify that and have 4 dry classrooms, 4 wet classrooms, and it'd be $10,405,000 is the estimate for building a building that way. Again, still be a 2-story building. Or option number 3 is you reallocate the remaining $35 million, which includes a 2.8, and go up to $27 million for what was the original design at River City High, which was not a science building, by the way. They were dry classrooms in the original design. $27 million, and that would leave you $8.4 million for everything else you still have on your project list, which is roofing repairs, ADA upgrades, Bright Phase 2, mechanical repairs, and electrical wiring upgrades. So what we're really looking for from the board is which direction would you like us to continue with your bond program?
I do have a public comment. Don Stauffer.
Hello again. I think my major concern with this is that you are being presented 3 options, and I don't think the 3 options encapsulate everything that is possible. And to encapsulate everything that is possible, I believe that the district has to take a look at what it has available already in facilities and what it needs in facilities. Because I think that that conversation needs to happen before you decide on breaking ground on a $10 or $27 million building. You know, some of the questions that I have, as we go to one-to-one devices, what do we do with all the computer labs? Do they go away? That would certainly open up space, and some of those rooms could be very easily converted into wet rooms. You know, I'm thinking of the ones that are already in the science building, for instance. What happens with the student population if you're shifting kids over to Bright Campus, and especially if you're adding another wing of classrooms there? So what will that do to classroom loads at the existing high school? What's going to happen to existing loads at the high school if you have kids shifting over to the early college prep? So there's a lot of facilities things that are going on that I think need to be thought about a little bit more thoroughly. And I would hope that an option that you would decide on would be not one of the three options presented to you, personally. One other thing I wanted to ask about is I got a call from someone on the safety committee who was inquiring about the installation of the security gates and, you know, the other security things that were anticipated with the bond, and was told that that was all on hold now until this had been determined. And if I remember correctly, the safety concerns was up there near the top in the original surveys that were used to put the bond together. And I would hope, since that's a $1.5 million piece of this, that those funds, regardless of anything else that happens with what you decide, that those funds could be let loose so those security gates and other security measures can be implemented soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
Yes, I was driving all around town getting those signatures for the ballot, not as a school board member, as a community member. And so I know I talked to everybody on their doorstep, and other members sit up here too. And safety was big. It was big on the surveys. It was big at people's doorsteps. And so a couple of things. One, I think what I would say is the gates, for example, at Westfield, that's going in this, maybe it's already in, but it's going in this summer, I was told, a new.
Correct.
Okay. Is that bond money or is that something different?
The combination.
Okay. That type of thing is a huge piece because it affects, it's a small thing. It's not a lot of money when we look at where we're putting things here, but that is something that touches everyone. They see it. There's a lot of things that have happened that voters haven't seen. And of course, you have good air conditioning and roofs, and people don't see that, and we told them that. But I would like some of those pieces to come up. We had those conversations. It's not as much money as the other pieces, and it was a priority for folks. And I honestly want to see that before anything else. And then in terms of looking at the facilities, I know that our Measure V committee is not a advisory committee. They're really an oversight committee to make sure that we're using our tax money appropriately and that we're doing a good job with it, which I think that we have done a good job with the things that have gone forward. But personally, I don't work in the high school classroom. I don't have kids that are going to the high school classroom. I don't feel like I am equipped to make a decision of which option for the high school. And so what I would like to propose is that it might be a few people from Measure V, it might be staff members, parents. I'd like to have some type of maybe advisory committee, some public meetings about the high school. This is too much money, and the voters approved it. And so I personally don't want to make a decision without having more input before we go there. I certainly appreciate all the work that was done, but.
And if I could just to kind of bring back to where this program originally started, you have a capital investment program that you have developed, and this is a component of that. It's a $225 million program. This was the first series of bonds that were going to be requested in a multiple iteration of bonds that you're going to need to do all the work that is needed to be done in the district. And when we took the capital investment program and we came to the board and we said, what are the priorities? This is what the board at the time decided that they wanted to see done with that first round of bonds. You can certainly change what you're doing here. I mean, you have the right to do that. It's the board's prerogative. But I think versus going and starting a new subcommittee, I think you should look back at your capital investment program. You spent a lot of money developing that program, and I think that program should be dictating or at least have some input onto where you go with these dollars, because that program identifies a lot of deficiencies. And this particular round of work that was being done addressed some of the most significant deficiencies that are identified in that document.
I think the CIP is a good document, and we should all revisit it. I absolutely agree. And just to reiterate, or to make myself more clear, I'm not at all talking about anything off of this list. I don't want to, I'm not talking about going off and trying something different. I'm just talking about informing the decision of what's already here. And so I'm supportive of this list. I'm not changing my support of the list. It's what that looks like or how it happens. I would just like some more input on, personally. Thank you.
Board Member Alcala?
I concur with Board Member Kirby Gonzalez, and I just want to bring to your attention, you do have 2 new board members that at that time didn't have input into that. And I did have one more question. Scott, you referenced that state construction bond. How would that apply if it passes? And I mentioned, I looked at some of the polls. It looks like a 60% passage on that one. How would that affect the existing monies that we have not used? Do they match them? How does, my understanding was they would match them by 40%?
It's going to depend on how they divide the proceeds of that bond up. Just like you've taken a bond and identified it to sites, the state will take that bond program, and the supermajority of it is going to go to new construction and or modernization and or unhoused students and or emergency repairs and some other categories. How they're going to allocate that at this point, I couldn't tell you. In past bonds, the primary focus has been on new construction. So for what we're doing here, could we get some of it for River City High School? It's possible. I have to go and look. If you look at the current loading capacity at the school that we talked about before, I don't know if we'd qualify for new construction or unhoused student funding based on the current capacity of the high school versus the population. So we can look at that, but for this particular piece, again, if you guys want to not have a new building at the high school and we want to do something else, we can certainly do it. But as far as the bond, I couldn't tell you what monies we'd qualify for. I think when the bond comes out, our focus would be on new school, because you have new development starting, and as those developments come up, you're going to need a school there, and that would probably be a place to get some developer fees and some school matching to see if we can get a school built where there's not money coming out of the district's general facility program. And then I would look at modernization. We do have a schedule. Modernization was done in this district, and it's not, believe it or not, that old. It's not due for most of the school sites for at least another 10 to 15 years.
Board Member Pizzotti?
Thank you. Since I'm not familiar with the roofing upgrades, the 10.5 million, it says including dry rot. Am I to understand that those schools have dry rot on their roofs currently? And, okay.
Yeah, I have to say, we always put in a factor for dry rot, because until you start taking the roof apart, you don't know what's underneath.
Well, I'm just thinking Bridgeway Island is not that old, so.
No, well, Bridgeway Island.
Having dry rot at this point already is.
Well, Bridgeway Island has steel roofs too.
That would make it even harder, wouldn't it?
Yes. But all of the older schools in the district, everything north of the channel, those are wood frame roofs.
Frames, okay.
And we've been very fortunate. We do put in a contingency amount for dry rot into every roofing project, and when you think of it as a percentage of total cost, it's been very small.
So let me ask you this. Do we have any classrooms right now that have leaky roofs?
Oh, sure we do. Students are not in them. It's at Westmore Oaks, is where our next set of worst roofs are. When we get done with the current round of roofing projects, we will have completely re-roofed Riverbank, Elkhorn, and Alice Norman. And then the next major deficiency in roofs is at Westmore Oaks.
Okay, so if we were to put new roofs on Westmore Oaks, that area could be used then for classrooms?
It would take a
Or are
lot
they
more than
not?
roofs.
What, okay.
The spaces haven't been modernized. I can bring you back a full
Okay.
assessment
I get
on
what
Westmore
you're
Oaks, but
saying.
there's a
Okay,
lot of work that would have to be done in those.
Modernization needs to be
Yes.
done, so it
Yes.
needs, so then what you're telling me is that in order for that to happen, to increase capacity for some of those places, you would need to do both roofs and modernization.
That's correct.
So it's really not just, 10.5. It's, well, wherever the other modernization is. And it's not on
Well,
there.
there's not modernization
It's not on
specifically in
there.
this plan.
Right.
That's correct, because modernization, you'd want to get state matching funds, and that's going to be a few years down the road. To get a school like Westmore Oaks, the wings that are currently not being used, up to speed, we'd have to go in on our own, do an assessment, determine exactly what we want to do with those rooms, figure out what the cost is, and then we start maximizing our different funding sources besides just Measure V. You have some developer fees, you have some redevelopment agency fees, and you have just some general facility money that rolls through investments that are made and interest that is earned on those funds. And we'd start moving those parts and pieces around to fund a project like you'd want to see at Westmore Oaks.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you have a priority on how you're going to address these things? Right now,
If you're asking my preference,
Yeah.
my preference is roofs. I think that's the
Is this,
biggest exposure
is this
that we
list
have.
in the order of your preference? Or is it not really in any type of order?
No, it is not in any type of order. I'd have to go back and look. I have a feeling that this list follows more along the lines of the things that surveyed well in the bond survey, and those things that surveyed well came to the top of the priority list. But I'd have to go back and verify the data, but I believe that's how that list was put together.
And are we under any time constraints or anything? I mean, I know we want to push forward, but in listening to the board, I don't think we're going to give you any direction tonight.
No, I don't think you are either.
I think, all of us could probably get the CIP again, because I don't know that
I
these two
haven't
ever even
received it.
looked at it.
Okay.
And
Well,
personally, I don't want to say I agree with anybody, but I don't like the three options that are in front of me.
Okay.
I would like to revisit some things, because for me personally, I think maybe we should look at a priority list. And give you a direction on what the board thinks is, leaky roofs, for the fall. Yeah, that's a priority. How bad is the electric wiring? I mean, of course, safety is high, so, maybe, I know when we did the bond that this came high on the surveys, but at some point, we need to look at what is going to be a safety hazard at our sites and determine that also. So I think what I'm going to ask is for all of us to be able to get the CIP again, look at it, and probably have this conversation again. And I would suggest, before we have this conversation again, that board members contact you or Linda and sit down and talk with their concerns, so we don't have so many questions out here.
You know what we can do too is I can have staff go back and categorize the CIP, because if you go and you look at the CIP, it literally goes school site by school site and identifies deficiencies and estimated costs. And so when you're then flipping through this document, you've got 13 different school sites. For you to be able to put that together and assess that's not easy to do. So maybe if staff goes and creates a summary of what is there and which school sites seem to fall into the categories. We'll create a grid or something for you. It may make your review of that document easier. So let me talk to Kevin and his team about putting something together for you that will help guide you through a review of the CIP. It's
Well,
a
I'd like
very
them to have
comprehensive
the
document.
original also.
It is online.
Definitely. And then give a summary.
Okay.
So,
And the CIP is online, so you have access to it.
Where is it?
It's on the facilities page, and it
Yeah.
says capital investment program, and you go there, and there are 4 documents in there,
Okay.
because
I'll look it up.
as a single
Huge.
document, it's huge.
it's huge, so yeah, maybe we'd just get the summary, because it is a very large document for
Okay.
them to produce.
I want to add one more comment to it, and just my own perspective of things. In terms of what I see is a pressing need is roofs, leaking roofs, roofs that don't hold water or reflect water very well, where water seeps in, creates mold, moisture, then that creates a whole slew of other problems that we have to mitigate. So it's more like an ounce of prevention by fixing a roof, saves you from a whole laundry list of, now we got a fund to do this, this, and this, because we didn't take care of one thing that we should have done when the time was right. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, so do you have some sort of direction? That might be.
Ew. I do. I'm gonna get you
Get us the
a
summary.
summary of the CIP,
And
so
I'm
you
gonna,
have an
I'm gonna
opportunity
task
to
the board with
evaluate.
going online themselves and looking
Yeah,
at
I'll
the
do that.
CIP once
And,
it's.
we'll continue to bring back or have some questions running through the superintendent's office to help better guide us into providing you the information that you need. Again, the time crunch isn't there, as you asked about, Ms. Cruz. The second series of the bond sells July 2017.
Okay.
You have some money there. You do have some other things that we'll have to talk about as far as, Bright and where you want to move forward with Bright and continue to finalize that campus, because it's basically a project that's half done. So do we want to finish that project or not? And so we'll bring some additional questions back to you along with that assessment of what you can do with the rest of the bond funds.
Thank you. And I'll just remind, because I was looking at the CIP not that long ago, that a lot of it's been done. So when you look, it is alarming, so that summary would help, because there are a lot of places
check
you won't
off
know
what's
what's
been
done
done.
or not done.
Yeah, and I'd say the one thing we were the most aggressive on was roofs. We've put over, every year, we're putting $1 million, $2 million into roofs because they were in very bad shape. So we've made great progress in that area.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is 10 o'clock, so I need a motion to continue.
Move.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye, with an apology to everyone here.
We are to action items, approval of resolution number 1516-28 in support of Children's Education and Health Care Protection Act of 2016, extension of Proposition 30.
Thank you, President Cruz, Board of Trustees. This particular agenda item is being brought forward by, in request from the board. And this is in relation to the state's discussion in extending the Proposition 30 taxes that were initiated in 2012 during the very difficult economic times for public schools. And basically, the passage of Proposition 30 in 2012 was to help an immediate issue of a lack of funding. The state basically ran out of cash. And this was implemented so that the schools could continue functioning, even though there were deep cuts made to public education. The discussion for the extension of these particular taxes is to extend another 12 years for this particular proposition. And so far, the board's request to discuss this and have a resolution in support of this particular proposition is now on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I've got plenty of comments, but I'm going to make them real brief. We need to support this resolution as a board. I'm just saying, just making a comment, making it quick. We need to support this resolution as a board because this is going to be an as I said earlier, $8 to $11 billion funding hole in our budget, in our state budget. This will eventually lead to a budget deficit ongoing. especially as the economy downturns. This is one of the things that could potentially keep us flatlined if the economy does make a downturn and prevent us from having severe cuts. And with that, I'd make a motion to approve
I
it.
actually have a public comment.
Damn.
Sorry. Don Stoffer?
Hello again, and if I was reading my numbers correctly as you guys were talking about things, I would guess that it would affect Washington Unified on the order of about $4 million a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Any more comments or questions? Can I now have a motion to approve the resolution 1516-28?
I will move it.
I'll second.
This is a resolution, so it's a roll call vote. Board Member Pizzati?
Aye.
Board Member Alcala?
Aye.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
Aye.
And I too vote aye. And item P2, for the gentleman that's been waiting all night, to approve the Bright Park Phase 2 update, Scott Landsberg.
I'm going to have city staff go ahead and take the podium. They can walk you through the update that was presented at the 2x2 meeting earlier this week. Again, this updated and approval by the board is a requirement of the MOU that was entered in between the board and the city, since the district owns the property that the Bright Park is located upon.
Good evening, President and Board of Trustees. I'm Chris Sorofsky. I'm a project manager for the City of West Sacramento Public Works, and at this time we have the 30% drawings completed for Bright Park Phase 2. I expect to get the 80% drawings next week, and we're looking for approval so that we can, as soon as we have our environmental paperwork complete, we want to go out to bid and hopefully start construction in October. The project will consist of a parking lot, a concrete plaza area, shade shelter, restroom, and a sports court.
Comments or questions? Board Member?
I wish we could pull up the picture, but you can certainly look at it online. And one of the big things that we talked about that families I know want out there is shade. And while it's not shade over the structure, this will be really nice. It's a picnic area with shade over, and I think that will fill a huge need. Bathroom, yes. Here, I'll pass it down there for those who haven't seen. Bathroom, which has been a huge need as well, and drinking fountain. So those are things that, when I'm out at the park, I've looked for, and I think that these will be really nice amenities. The only comment I had at the 2x2 was the parking lot and the park, there's not much of a divide, and so if it's just a little fence or some type of divide, I think as a parent, I'd feel much more comfortable sitting at those picnic benches with the parking lot right there. But I think that this is something that the community will really enjoy. I know that my family will.
So I have a question. Sure. So how many bathrooms are there going to be?
There's going to be just one bathroom with 2 rooms. It's going to be a unisex bathroom, so there'll be a stall in each one.
So only 2?
Yes. In the future, in the next phases, just north of here where we have a baseball complex, there's going to be a large restroom. There's already a restroom on the west side that's just got refurbished last year. And then we have a large restroom right across the street. But for the picnic area, this is the size that we feel would support the picnic area and the play structure.
Are you going to have water fountains out there?
Yes.
How many?
Right now, there's just one. There's already existing water fountains in the park. We're trying to, if you look at the picture, we're concentrating on that area.
Okay. And I do have another question. Some groups have testified or come forward, and they mentioned that there was, I guess, $4 million set aside maybe about 5 years ago for Bright Park.
Uh-huh.
Is that money being used?
It's being used. We had the master plan come off that money. We've done the first phase with that money. We're doing environmental, so we're slowly going through it. We don't have it all available. That was there. It's been spent.
Do you have a list of where that money's been spent?
No, I don't.
Who has it?
I don't know. I can ask the Parks and Rec director for it.
I would like to see a copy of that. I think the public would be very interested, especially a lot of folks on the north side.
Okay.
Thank you. Did you have any questions, Mr.
Nope.
I know this is a phase-by-phase thing. As each phase goes, I know there's water faucets being added. I know there's bathrooms being added. And I truly am glad to see these basketball courts. I wish there were more because I go out there constantly, and I will tell you the older kids bully the younger kids and not sharing the court. But it is a great start, and I'm glad that we are going forward. I know it's taken a lot of years to get this far, but maybe I'll get out on the court and play. Yeah, right. But I thank you. I thank you for the shade. I do agree with Board Member Kirby Gonzalez that I wouldn't want a car to just drive up in the park. So if there is some kind of a fence or
We're trying to put planter
or
beds.
solar panels or,
Yeah.
something. Is there any more comments or questions?
One quick question. A lot of the older folks use the park. Are there going to be benches out there for them to use?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you so much. And
Thanks.
I have your paperwork here if you need it. Thank you for sticking around. Action item P3, approval of WUSD English Learner Master Plan. Gwen Dellinger, Director of Planning, Accountability, and Compensatory Education.
Thank you, President.
I had to say it again.
You want to say it one more time? I had to say Director of PACE, and then they think I'm in charge of PE.
Oh, that's the secret, all right.
Trustees, our district was lacking in a vital component, and that was an English Learner Master Plan. And with the addition of Krista Koch, who was our coordinator of English Language Learners, she began her tenure with Washington Unified in August of last year, and she immediately got to work on planning a task force to take on that task. And I'd like to turn over Krista to the mic so she can tell you about the Washington Unified School District's English Learner Master Plan, which is now it's written. I was going to say it's published, but not yet. Okay.
Well, good evening, President Cruz, trustees, Superintendent Luna, staff. It is with great pleasure to be here tonight to present this master plan to you. I first would really like to commend and recognize the task force, because without them, this work could not have been done. And they were extremely passionate, engaged, and involved in this process. So I want to say that before I even get into my first slides, okay? And you'll hear more about the task force. So why is an English Learner Master Plan important or necessary? As you heard Gwen say, we needed a page. In order for us to be on the same page, we needed a page to be on. And honestly, it's the first plan that we've had in this district. So that was a big piece of my job this year, was putting this together again. Another key component was with the shift in the California 2014 ELA-ELD framework, which is really looking at instructional practices for all of our students. But this year, this is the first time that ELD is part of the title, which is huge. ELD is finally getting the recognition that's been long overdue. 2012, we had new ELD standards written, and they are reflective of the Common Core standards. And again, in order for us to change our instructional practices in the classroom, we kind of needed a plan as far as how we were going to go ahead and proceed forward with that. Okay. The task force. So again, this is the heart that's beating in that plan. I started my very first district leadership meeting. I was asked to kind of recruit from the principals. I was introduced, and it was kind of like, okay, do some recruiting. And it was great because the principals got on that right away. They nominated teachers, they nominated parents, community members, and from there we wanted full representation, and so I kind of reached out to our ELA, science, and math cadre groups to get more. And as you see on the list of members, we have membership from every single school site. And I am very pleased again that that happened, including, again, parent representation, principals, district-level administrators. We're all part of this team. What we did with the team was we needed to kind of lay the groundwork. Like, there's a lot of government that needs to go into an English Learner Master Plan that I wanted to ensure that everybody on that task force knew what that was. So we spent 3 sessions covering most current research involving English learners, what are best practices, what are the new Common Core shifts as far as how we're instructing our English learners, and again, what are some of the requirements that need to go into that English Learner Master Plan. So we spent a lot of time doing that, and then the last sessions were all about writing, revising, commenting, processing, brainstorming, and really making it that document. Okay. Implementation, so currently you're looking at, I believe, hopefully the English version, but we do plan on having it translated into both Spanish and into Russian. Once we get our new beautiful website, it will go up on our district English learner page so that parents will have access to it there as well. DLAC was a representative of this task force as well, as far as I informed them, here's what we're doing. But my plan with DLAC next year is to get them a little bit deeper into the goals that were written by the task force so that they understand as parents what the programs are. In addition to that, we will be providing training for staff members, and when I say staff members, I mean principals, teachers, site secretaries. You know, it affects everybody at a school site. And you can see there as well that DLAC and, of course, ELAC will be trained. Okay. Fiscal impact, really, with LCFF and Title III funds, will cover any of the necessary costs as far as making copies, the translation, all of that. So that's taken care of. And ultimately, again, what we're looking for with this master plan, there's optimal programs for the English learners in Washington Unified School District, including the dual immersion program that's what's up and coming at Elkhorn, the CELA biliteracy that I've brought to you as well this year, and then looking at what our program and our program options for our K-5, 6-8, 9-12 integrated and designated ELD services. Okay? Any questions?
You know, and maybe Superintendent Luna or the other board members could correct me, but, you know, we mentioned graduation at River City. Didn't we have the first, was it 36 students, or was that from River City that?
Yes, 36.
Had their first, was it the little stickers,
yeah.
the stickers on their diploma?
We had
So
a
that was
cord.
really exciting. I
Yeah,
mean,
cord, that's
when that
right.
was announced, I heard the whole board just gasp, yay! You know, so that was a good amount, so.
Oh, the aqua cord.
And we have 2 pending per AP results, just so you know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Any comments, questions? Yes?
Oh, are you all done? This is just a really nice document. You have a lot of great people on this committee, and
Yes.
so it's very comprehensive. It looks good. I just have a simple question or two, and that is, did staff get a stipend to be on this, or did they have release time, or how did that look for those meetings?
We did pay them, yeah.
Nice.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
very nice.
Yes.
And then, yeah, everything else looks good. In terms of the objectives and where they're going with measurable data, I've said this type of thing before, and so it's not personal, but seeing the CELT makes a lot of sense to me. Seeing SBAC, not always so much. And so I just want to make sure, once again, as I say often, that we have multiple measures if we're looking at reading passages and other pieces too. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you so much. I know you seem so excited, and then you bring a great energy to the program, and so thank you and the rest of the staff that put this together, and we're excited to see what's coming forward.
And thank you for hanging around this late.
No worries.
Definitely.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I need a motion to approve the WUSD English Learner Master Plan.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Consent agenda, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Board governance, I handed out the self-evaluations last board meeting. Even though this isn't a board governance discussion, I will tell you I am not prepared to discuss the evaluations any further tonight. I mean, we can in the future. I know board member Kirby Gonzalez will not be here next time. Board member Villegas is not here tonight, so I propose we put it over till June. No, July. This is June. And with all the board members are here. And not to give an excuse, but as many people know, the last few months I've lost my mother. Last week I lost a very dear friend, and I've been planning memorial services all week. And again, this is not a governance discussion, but I tell folks out there, have a plan for when you pass. So I've been doing a lot of digging, and it's amazing at how our kids don't know where we went to high school or where we were born, what associations or groups we were in. So I just encourage people, get that done.
Right.
So, do we have any future board agenda items? I have the first read of the Board Policy and Administrative Regulation Series 0000, July 2016. And I have S2 District Homework Policies / Philosophies, and that'll be done in August. And if you had any future board agenda items, you would have a slip, and I don't see
I
any,
know.
so.
Give it to you tomorrow.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank everyone so much.